Chapter 285. They returned to Sky Blue College. Tianyang looked at the two treasures in his hands with a satisfied expression. As for Ling Yuhan, he was also very satisfied with the rewards of the freshman trial. The higher one's ranking in the new student trial, the more cultivation resources they would receive. At the beginning of the talent test, they would be allocated a mansion. Ordinary students were all gathered in one area. Only a genius like Tianyang, who was so outstanding that he defied the heavens, would have his own courtyard. As for the new student trial, other than the mansion, the other cultivation resources were determined. Ordinary students could receive 10 ordinary missions, 1 special mission, 100 spirit stones, and 1 chance to borrow a martial skill from the martial skill pavilion every month. Tianyang, who ranked first among the new students, could receive an unlimited number of ordinary missions, 50 special missions, 5,000 spirit stones, and 10 chances to borrow a martial skill. Ling Yuhan, who ranked second among the new students, could also receive an unlimited number of ordinary missions. However, the number of special missions was reduced to 30, 2,000 spirit stones, and 5 chances to borrow a martial skill. This kind of cultivation resource was something that ordinary students could not even dream of. Only students who were as talented as him could barely match up to him. However, in terms of true ability, no one could surpass Tianyang and Ling Yuhan. Even if Ling Yuhan was only at the first level of the origin transformation stage, it was still the same. Duguao was still alright. Although he did not enter the top 3, he still obtained a good ranking of 4th. Beigongyu was close behind at 5th. As for Nangong Shun, he was much more miserable. He was only ranked 7th. To a rank 7 genius of the Nangong family, this ranking was ridiculously low. If he had not offended Tianyang and Ling Yuhan at the beginning, with Nangong Shin's talent and ability, he would definitely have had a chance to be ranked 3rd. Unfortunately, this fellow did not have eyes and dared to offend Tianyang and Ling Yuhan on the first day. This also sealed his tragic fate. As for the 3rd place, Tianyang was slightly surprised. It was actually Liu Songhai. However, he did not care much about it. However, in this way, those who came from their testing area would be in the top 5 of the new student trial. Damn it, this Tianyang is too presumptuous. After returning to his residence, Nangong Shun smashed the teacup in his hand and roared furiously. Nangong Shun's true origin, which had already reached the peak of the 6th level of the origin transformation stage, was constantly fluctuating, showing that he was extremely furious. I can't deal with you now, but there are too many people in the outer court of Sky Blue College who can. Nangong Shun roared with hatred. Then, he took out his communication token and started to send a message. Is it Big Brother? That Tianyang, the number 1 freshman, had really gone too far. Your younger brother has been robbed by him countless times, so much so that he's only ranked 7th. Yes, that's right. He lives at the bottom of the hill. He should still be in the house. All right. Nangong Shun hung up after sending the message for a while. He put away the communication token and looked into the distance with resentment. I can't do anything to you, but there are too many people in the outer campus who can deal with you. He's ranked 21st on the outer court genius ranking. He'll definitely beat you up until you're on your knees begging for mercy. Ha ha ha. Now that I have the purple silk flower, how should I set up this special spirit gathering formation? Tianyang did not know that he was being targeted again. He was studying the method of setting up the powerful spirit gathering formation in his mind as he held the spirit stone in his hand and muttered to himself. Although he had obtained the method of setting up this formation, he had never set it up. After all, this purple silk flower came from the foreign realm and could only be found by chance. Even in Tianyang's previous life, he had never obtained it. Soon, Tianyang understood it and took out the purple silk flower with a face full of confidence. It's actually set up according to the 8 trigrams and 9 palaces. This way, not only will the spirit gathering formation be greatly strengthened, but it will also have a certain degree of protection. Yes, I'll modify it a little. This way, the protection will be even stronger and it can contain more formations. Then, I'll set up an offensive formation and it'll be perfect. Tianyang was in high spirits as he spoke eloquently. The originally perfect spirit gathering formation was changed beyond recognition under his modification. However, this change was because it had become even more perfect. After all, Tianyang was not only a great emperor of the Way of the Sword, but he was also a supreme master of alchemy and formations. The 8 trigrams and 9 palaces and the spirit stones have been set up. Now, it's time to set up the most important formation eye and formation guide. Tianyang worked extremely quickly. In a short while, he had completed all the basic work. Next, it was time to integrate the purple silk flower into the formation. The current spirit gathering formation did not have the purple silk flower as the formation eye and formation guide. It was just an empty shell, but this empty shell was still absorbing the surrounding spirit chi of heaven and earth. It was still missing the most crucial step, but it was already so powerful. One could see how powerful this spirit gathering formation would be once it was set up successfully. This is it. As long as I plant the purple silk flower and activate the formation, I'll be done. Tianyang came to an obvious spot in the courtyard and carefully planted the purple silk flower. He had to be careful. After all, there was only one purple silk flower, and this was his first time setting up this formation. Therefore, if he failed, he would not be able to get a second purple silk flower. This spirit gathering formation was related to the progress of his cultivation breakthrough. Therefore, he had to be extremely careful. In the end, the purple silk flower was planted perfectly. Furthermore, it had perfectly fused with the spirit formation. In the next moment, Tianyang's expression turned serious as he circulated the inner yuan in his body. Boom! A surging aura erupted from Tianyang's body. In the next moment, Tianyang raised his right hand and a majestic inner yuan condensed. Ha! Tianyang roared and his right hand accurately hit a spot. Boom, boom, boom. A series of deafening explosions erupted. The stream in front of the door rippled unsteadily, and the small mountain behind them trembled slightly. If someone were to look down from the sky, they would be able to clearly see extremely mysterious formation runes being released from all directions. They spread, overlapped, spread, and overlapped. Finally, with the purple silk flower as the center, it formed a huge formation that enveloped the 2 courtyards. This fluctuation, someone is setting up a powerful formation in the academy. In the dean's residence, the dean looked into the distance in shock. He was extremely shocked. He was a formation master, but he still could not tell where the fluctuation of the formation originated from. Where did it come from? Indeed, the spirit gathering formation that Tianyang had set up with the purple silk flower was something that even the dean of Sky Blue College, a spirit sea realm formation master, could not do. This was because this spirit gathering formation of the vast ocean was equivalent to a 4th grade pill. Chapter 286. The formation was majestic, and the runes were mysterious and gorgeous. Lines of extremely mysterious formation runes connected with each other and finally formed a magnificent formation. A faint golden light shone on the runes. In the center of the formation, the purple radish flower started to sway slightly. Together with the formation, it attracted the surrounding spiritual chi. The vast ocean spirit gathering formation gathered spiritual chi into a vast ocean. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering sound exploded in the formation. Even Ling Yuhan was shocked, thinking that an enemy was approaching. As for Tianyang, he was looking at his surroundings with satisfaction. Outside the array, layers of mist were beginning to condense. This was not the kind of mist that obstructed vision. It was the spiritual chi of heaven and earth that would only appear when the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had gathered to the extreme. The heaven and earth spiritual fog represented that the heaven and earth spiritual chi in this place had already gathered to an inconceivable level. Not bad. This effect is indeed worthy of the reputation of the vast ocean formation emperor. Tianyang chuckled. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth gathered rapidly in the blink of an eye. In just a few breaths, one could feel it. The surrounding spiritual chi of heaven and earth had increased by at least 5 times. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the firmament territory was more than twice that of the northern wilderness region. Sky Blue College also had a large-scale spirit gathering formation. Although the large-scale spirit gathering formation was not very effective due to its large size, it still increased the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in Sky Blue College to an extremely powerful level. It was at least 5 times that of the firmament territory. That was 3 times that of the northern wilderness region. On this basis, Tianyang's vast ocean spirit gathering formation increased by more than 5 times. In an instant, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth had increased by 15 times. In other words, Tianyang's small courtyard had 15 times the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the northern wilderness region. Although the northern wilderness region was located in the northernmost part of Heaven Continent, it was very desolate and barren. However, the amount of spiritual chi of heaven and earth was not low. Even the central region only had 3 to 4 times that of the northern wilderness region. Now, Tianyang's vast ocean spirit gathering formation had increased the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in his courtyard to 15 times that of the northern wilderness region. Even some sects in the central region could not do this. Not bad. Tianyang narrowed his eyes as he felt the increasingly abundant heaven and earth spiritual energy. He enjoyed the feeling of his true essence increasing with every breath he took. Yes, the spiritual chi of heaven and earth here was already so abundant. The formation emperor of the vast sea is indeed worthy of his name. His cultivation and array Tao is only at the advanced rank 4 spirit gathering formation, yet he can play such tricks. Tianyang exclaimed in admiration. Although he was a supreme array master in his previous life, he was not the #1 array master in Heaven Continent at that time. The first person was the Formation Emperor of the Vast Seas. The Formation Emperor of the Vast Sea was a legend in the history of Sky Cloud's continent. He was a milestone. His magical ability to set up a formation made even emperors not dare to compete with him. Only Tianyang, the Tianji Sword Emperor, could directly break through his formation and fight him one-on-one. However, Tianyang had only used his terrifying sword Dao cultivation to break the formation. In terms of formation Dao, Tianyang was ashamed of his inferiority. He only had the combat strength of an emperor, but he was an existence that even emperors were afraid of. Unfortunately, this kind of existence eventually died of old age. After all, he was a figure of the era of the origin Emperor Shirsu. Even emperors of the Ascension realm had limited lifespans. However, now that I think about it, that guy was still a little lucky. If he had seen the despair of the great destruction of civilization, I'm afraid he wouldn't have died so peacefully. Tianyang suddenly smiled and said, when the Formation Emperor of the Vast Seas passed away, he sent him off as the #2 array master in Heaven Continent. After the Formation Emperor of the Vast Seas passed away, he became the #1 array master. Of course, other people thought so, but Tianyang never thought so. After all, his array Dao cultivation was still weaker than the Formation Emperor of the Vast Seas. Back then, he used the Vast Sea God slaughtering formation to shatter the void, seriously injuring 3 emperors and a great emperor. Even now, Tianyang still admired him. Well, the dead are gone. Let's experience it now. The corner of Tianyang's mouth curled up slightly. He then decided to return to the cultivation room to experience it. Right now, the vast ocean spirit gathering formation was still gathering spiritual chi, and the spiritual chi of heaven and earth was still increasing rapidly. However, according to Tianyang's calculations, the northern wilderness region's spiritual chi would reach its limit by 18 times at most. Unless he changed the inferior grade spiritual stones to middle grade spiritual stones or superior grade spiritual stones, or changed the purple silk flower to a better formation catalyst. Otherwise, there was no way to increase it. At this time, Ling Yuhan ran up to Tianyang with a look of admiration and said excitedly, "Master is so amazing." The spiritual chi of heaven and earth here was so high that even she, who had explored many secret realms, was shocked. Even the Onyx Mountain Range, the northern wilderness secret realm, and the dragon-hiding ancient land could not compare to Tianyang's courtyard. The heavenly sun spirit gathering ray had directly created the best cultivation environment that they needed for their current cultivation. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth is very abundant now. You can go back first. The Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique will be much faster in a place like this where the spiritual chi of heaven and earth is abundant. Your foundation is very solid now. You have battled many times in the Onyx Mountain Range. You have the foundation to break through to the second level of the origin transformation stage. Once you reach the second level of the origin transformation stage, you can also cultivate stronger martial skills. Tianyang patted Ling Yuhan's head and smiled. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan nodded and skipped back to the cultivation room. When they were in the Soaring Cloud sect, Ling Yuhan and Tianyang lived together. Now that they were at Sky Blue College, their relationship was even deeper. Naturally, they could not be separated. As for Tianyang, after Ling Yuhan left, he also turned around, but did not immediately cultivate. A sharp light flashed in his eyes. In the next moment, Tianyang's figure appeared outside the formation. In front of Tianyang, a tall and handsome man stood proudly. The long spear in his hand shone with a cold light. His cultivation of the 9th level of the origin transformation stage was fully revealed. Who are you? Why did you attack my formation? Tianyang appeared in front of the handsome man in a flash and asked coldly. There was a faint anger in his eyes. Previously, he had a strange expression because someone was attacking the formation. If the vast ocean spirit gathering formation was not much stronger than other spirit gathering formations and had the ability to defend, the spirit gathering formation that Tianyang had painstakingly set up would have been destroyed. Me? Hearing this, the handsome man sneered and looked at Tianyang mockingly. My name is Nangong Feng. I am ranked 21st on the Outer Court Genius Ranking. Chapter 287. Nangong Feng, ranked 21st on the Outer Court Genius Ranking. Tianyang said calmly as he looked at the handsome man in front of him. When he slapped Nangong Yin in the face and robbed Nangong Shun, he knew that there would be a lot of trouble from the Nangong family after he returned to Sky Blue College. After all, such a sanctimonious family valued their reputation the most. Naturally, they would not sit back and do nothing when their most powerful genius was humiliated by Tianyang. Now, as expected, Nangong Feng was here. He was ranked 21st on the Outer Court Genius Ranking and was at the 9th level of the Origin Transformation stage. Even the Flying Sword, who had awakened the Sky Blade Constitution, might not be able to defeat him. However, would Tianyang be afraid? That's right, Nangong Feng said coldly. A lowly commoner dares to humiliate my younger brother, Nangong Shun. Do you know what crime this is? Nangong Feng said arrogantly as he looked down at Tianyang from above. His words seemed to contain the most powerful disdain. These sons of aristocratic families had disdain for commoners from their very bones. Even after Tianyang easily killed Nangong Shun, Nangong Feng still despised Tianyang. The pride in their hearts made them look down on everyone. It had evolved into the morbid pride they had today. In Sky Continent, strength is everything. Your younger brother's strength was trash, so of course, I robbed him. Tianyang grinned. Nangong Feng's face darkened when he heard that. How dare you be so stubborn? Since you said that strength is everything, then I'll use my strength to make you respect me. Nangong Feng shouted. In the next moment, the long spear in his hand emitted streaks of lightning. Nangong Feng used his movement technique and charged forward. Mystic Class Upper Grade Martial Technique, Lightning Spear. Streaks of true origin condensed and turned into terrifying streaks of lightning. Then, the streaks of lightning gathered crazily and turned into a spear with terrifying penetrating power. Seeing this spear, Tianyang's eyes narrowed slightly. This spear had already been cultivated to the peak of the second stage, which was the so-called large success stage. If it was an ordinary 7th level origin transformation stage cultivator before it, the only outcome would be having the spear pierce through the heart and dying on the spot. The power is not bad, but it's still not good enough. Tianyong chuckled and pulled out the killing sword from his back. The lightning spear that was coming at him at a terrifying speed seemed to have slowed down a lot. Countless openings were exposed in Tianyong's eyes. In the next moment, Tianyong smiled lightly and slashed down with his sword. Boom! The killing sword and long spear collided. Energy collided, causing a terrifying explosion. Waves of energy erupted in all directions, causing ripples of energy to rise up. Seeing this, Nangongfeng's expression changed. You can actually take my spear attack. However, Tianyong did not intend to let him go. He used the dragon subduing step and the dragon subduing will, and his figure instantly escaped from Nangongfeng's lock. The next moment, on Tianyong's killing sword, lightning flashed. This is the real lightning. Earth rank intermediate martial skill, brilliant thunder of heaven and earth. Boom, boom, boom. Streaks of lightning that contained terrifying sword chi descended from the sky. The monstrous lightning seemed to illuminate the heavens and the earth. The vast sea of lightning directly enveloped Nangongfeng. Seeing this, Nangongfeng's expression changed drastically. He waved the long spear in his hand and continuously channeled his true origin. He used countless martial skills in an attempt to block the attack. However, it was an Earth-tier middle-grade sword move executed by the Sky Pole Sword Emperor. How could it be blocked so easily? Boom! Pooh! An explosion and the sound of blood being spat out sounded at the same time. Nangongfeng used countless martial skills to form layers of defense, but could not hold on for more than 3 seconds. It was destroyed by the brilliant thunder of heaven and earth. Following this, a streak of lightning that contained powerful sword chi also struck Nangongfeng's body. Pooh! Another mouthful of blood was spat out. Nangongfeng's expression instantly turned ugly. At this moment, he realized the guy in front of him was only at the peak of the 4th level origin transformation stage. He was only at the peak of the 4th level origin transformation stage. But he, Nangongfeng, who was ranked 21st on the Outer Court Genius ranking, was beaten into such a wretched state. Bastard, Nangongfeng roared. He felt greatly humiliated. Even some of the half-step Dao fire stage powerhouses in the clan could not beat him to such a state with one move. However, this puny 4th level origin transformation stage powerhouse did it. I want you dead, Nangongfeng roared. His 9th level origin transformation stage, true origin transformation stage, erupted again. Boom, boom, boom. Thunder rumbled. Lightning surged on Nangongfeng's body like a long snake. In the next moment, Nangongfeng waved his long spear. Bang! More than half of the brilliant thunder of heaven and earth was destroyed by the spear. Following this, Nangongfeng stabbed his spear again and destroyed the brilliant thunder of heaven and earth. Seeing this, Tianyong's eyes narrowed slightly. This guy's strength was not bad. Even the half-step Dao fire stage seniors in the clan did not make me vomit blood. However, you actually dare to make me vomit blood. Nangongfeng's face was cold as he glared at Tianyong. He was burning with rage. How dare a lowly commoner like you injure me and make me vomit blood? Now, I'll use your life to pay for it. Middle Earth rank martial skill, illusory thunder spear. Nangongfeng roared. Instantly, the surrounding heaven and earth seemed to fluctuate. Earth rank martial skills could communicate with the energy of heaven and earth, and even affect heaven and earth. With Nangongfeng's martial skill cultivation, which was half a step into the intent realm, he could barely do this. Illusory Thunder Spear is a powerful martial skill that I obtained after passing the 31st checkpoint in the Void Thunder Hall. A lowly commoner like you will never get in your lifetime. Nangongfeng laughed arrogantly. The long spear in his hand was crazily condensed with lightning energy. It was much stronger than the thunder spear from before. Hearing this, Tianyong frowned slightly. Middle Earth rank martial skill? With Nangongfeng's strength, it was indeed a little troublesome for him. However, it was just a little troublesome. Since you dare to humiliate the Nangong family, you should be prepared to die in my hands. Illusory thunder spear, layers of thunder shadows, kill. Nangong Feng roared angrily. He stomped his right foot, and his entire body seemed to have turned into a ray of light. He charged towards Tianyang at a terrifying speed. Even the sound barrier was easily broken. With the distance between Tianyang and Nangong Feng could cross it in the blink of an eye. As for the long spear, it turned into countless thunder shadows. Not only was it hard to tell if they were real or fake, but each of the thunder shadows was quite powerful. Moreover, it was the real body. Not bad. As expected of a Middle Earth rank martial skill. You have some skills. Tianyang curled the corner of his mouth and looked at Nangong Feng. In the next moment, the killing sword in his hand flashed with a bloody light. Chapter 288. Upper Earth Rank, Thunder God's Sword. Tianyang smiled. In the next moment, the killing sword in his hand was covered with dazzling thunderbolts. The thunderbolts were much stronger than Nangong Feng's. Even the Middle Earth rank illusory lightning spear was like the light of a firefly in front of Tianyang's sword. The Thunder God's sword was like the light of the moon. How could the light of a firefly be compared to the light of the moon? All thunder skills are inferior to me. Break! Tianyang laughed out loud. Countless thunderbolts gathered on his body and turned into the killing sword. Immediately, a terrifying sword radiance burst out from the Thunder God's sword. The sword radiance seemed to be formed by thunderbolts. Although it was just a sword radiance, it seemed to contain the power to destroy everything. Thunderbolts were so powerful and terrifying. Moreover, Tianyang had often used the Thunder God's sword in his previous life. The Thunder God's sword had also been cultivated to the level of sword intent. The casual sword radiated a trace of the Thunder God's intent. What? Nangong Feng's face changed drastically. He looked at the Thunder God's sword radiance with a pale face. He even had a feeling that his thunderbolts were in front of the Thunder God's sword. They could only bow down to it. Impossible. I am a 21st on the Outer Yard Genius Board. Lightning Spear Nangong Feng. This move is a mid-grade, Earth-ranked martial skill from the Void Thunder Hall. How can a lowly commoner make me bow down to him? It must be an illusion. Nangong Feng shouted hysterically. However, Tianyang was too lazy to move a finger. When he had slashed out with the Thunder God's sword, he knew that the outcome of the battle had been decided. Boom! The illusory lightning spear and the Thunder God's sword collided. Countless spear shadows attacked, but the Thunder God's sword was not afraid. Every time the sword radiance moved, it meant that countless spear shadows were destroyed by the Thunder God's sword. Moreover, the Thunder God's force in the spear shadows was devoured by Tianyang and turned into the power of the Thunder God's sword. The illusory lightning spear was not a match for the Thunder God's sword. Now, the Thunder God's sword had absorbed the force of the lightning from the illusory lightning spear and become even stronger. Under such circumstances, the first to collapse was the illusory thunder spear. Boom! Boom! The countless lightning spear shadows shattered, revealing the true spear. At this moment, Nangong Feng's eyes turned red and he roared. A lowly commoner, a piece of trash, dares to compete with me. Then, Nangong Feng bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. The essence blood turned into the purest amplification force and acted on the illusory thunder spear. And the aura of the illusory thunder spear also instantly skyrocketed. Oh, he actually used the blood sacrifice technique? Tianyang's eyebrows twitched slightly as he looked at the illusory lightning spear that had increased in power. He was a little surprised. However, this trace of surprise also turned into an indifferent smile. Unfortunately, it's useless. Lightning God's sword, that's the Lightning God's sword. How could a mere illusory lightning spear and a mouthful of essence blood from the tip of his tongue resist the descent of the Lightning God? Break! Tianyang chuckled. The Thunder God's sword suddenly exploded with lightning. Even though it was strengthened by his blood essence, the Thunder God's sword was still too terrifying. In just 3 seconds, The blood essence blood's amplification force was exhausted. Then the upper rank treasure spear was also cut down by the sword. With endless lightning, the Thunder God's sword once again rushed towards Nangong Feng. Bastard! Nangong Feng's eyes were red. He looked at his spear in disbelief and roared, "I'll kill you." That was his upper rank treasure spear. How could it be cut down by a commoner trash? Looking for death? Then do as you wish. Tianyong smiled slightly. The true yuan in his body began to circulate. The 7 drops of sky origin true yuan released an almost endless amount of power to support the Thunder God's sword. Nangong Feng, who had just taken a step forward, suddenly woke up. A chill rose from his back and rushed to the top of his head. If he had rushed over, this sword would definitely have killed him. He was not training outside. Although he had a life-saving item on him, because he looked down on Tianyong, he left it in his residence. No! Nangong Feng roared. In the next moment, he immediately knelt on the ground and cried, "Don't kill me. As long as you don't kill me, I'll give you anything. I'll give you the illusory lightning spear, the thunderbolt spear, and the upper rank treasure spear. I'll even give you the 21st place on the outer court genius ranking." Nangong Feng shouted. Hearing this, Tianyong raised his eyebrows. Really? Really? As long as Big Brother Tianyong, no, Lord Tianyong doesn't kill me, I'll give you anything. Nangong Feng begged loudly. Hearing this, Tianyong's lips curled into a faint smile. This foppish aristocratic family was indeed a group of people who bullied the weak and feared the strong. Nangong Yin was like that, Nangong Shen was like that, Dong Fangzhe was like that, and even Nangong Feng was like that. Then, hand over the interspatial bag, and I'll spare your life. Tianyong smiled gently and moved his finger rhythmically. The thunderbolt sword, which carried the terrifying power of thunder, stopped in midair. Seeing this, Nangong Feng was even more shocked. How could he stop a sword move of this level with such power, just like that? What level had Tianyong's understanding of the sword principle reached? With this cultivation level, even if he went to the sword pagoda, he would be able to reach the sword pagoda steel. Seeing this, Nangong Feng dared not act rashly. He hurriedly took off the interspatial bag from his waist and threw it to Tianyong from afar without daring to stand up. Tianyong, on the other hand, did not even bat an eyelid as he grabbed the interspatial bag. That's quite a lot of spiritual stones. I didn't expect you to have 10 million spiritual stones when you're only in the natal transformation realm. Martial skills are trash. I don't need them. This illusory lightning spear is barely passable. However, I'm not a spear user. Forget it. Tianyong searched Nangong Feng's interspatial bag and commented from time to time, belittling Nangong Feng's treasures to be worthless. In fact, to the Tianji Sword Emperor, Nangong Feng's things were indeed trash. TSK, young master of the Nangong family. You only have these lousy things. After a while, Tianyong finished his looting. He replenished all the spiritual stones that he had used to set up the vast ocean spirit gathering formation. He even had some left. He also obtained a lot of elixirs. As for the most precious herbs in the interspatial bag, Tianyong took them without hesitation. Finally, there was the student token. Seeing the student token, Tianyong's lips curled into a playful smile. Nangong Feng, on the other hand, narrowed his eyes, and his expression changed drastically. Tianyong, please have mercy on me. Don't be so. Who was the one who said that if I spared your life, he would give it all to me? Oh, are you going back on your words? That's true. If I kill you, you'll still give me all these things. Why don't you don't? Master Tianyong, take whatever you want. If I say another word, I'll be a **** hole. Nangong Feng panicked when he heard that. He quickly shouted. Hearing that, Tianyong smiled and converted the 5,000 contribution points into his own. In addition to the original 1,000 contribution points, Tianyong now had close to 7,000 contribution points. All right, you can scram now. Tianyong chuckled and returned the interspatial bag to Nangong Feng. Nangong Feng hurriedly caught it. He was even more shocked. That casual toss of the interspatial bag contained all kinds of magical powers. The interspatial bag seemed to be flying in a parabola in the air, but it was constantly changing and difficult to distinguish. However, in the end, it still landed firmly in his hands. There was no deviation at all. That kind of ability was simply shocking. Thinking of how young Tianyang was, Nangong Feng was even more shocked. He gave up on making an enemy out of Tianyang. "Thank you for sparing my life, Master Tianyang. I'm leaving." Nangong Feng hurriedly stood up. He looked at the thunder god's sword with lingering fear. After shouting that, he ran away without looking back. As for Heavenly Sun, he smiled lightly and snapped his fingers, causing the lightning god's sword to dissipate. However, just as Nangong Feng was about to leave, he heard a long sigh. So poor. Sky Blue College, in a luxurious mansion not far from the freshman area. Nangong Shun had an arrogant look on his face. He hung one leg on the table and swung his chair back and forth. With Big Brother's help, Tianyang won't be able to escape. Nangong Shun laughed loudly. At that moment, the door opened. Nangong Shun turned around and was instantly delighted. "Big Brother, you're back. Is Tianyang dead? Big Brother, why you look so pale?" In the next moment, Nangong Feng rushed in. He clenched his fist and punched Nangong Shun's face. Chapter 289. After settling Nangong Feng's matter, Tianyang returned to the vast ocean spirit gathering formation. After the vast ocean spirit gathering formation reached 15 times the amount of spiritual qi in the northern wilderness region, it stopped growing and remained at that level. Although Tianyang's divine wilderness heavenly spirit technique and Ling Yuhan's Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique were powerful, they were not the type that had a terrifying devouring ability. The amount of spiritual qi in the heavens and earth was already sufficient. If there was more, Tianyang would have wasted it. As expected of the vast ocean formation emperor, he is indeed generous. What a pity, Tianyang sighed as he sat cross-legged in the living room, feeling the spiritual qi of the heavens and earth flowing from his fingertips. Even he would find it difficult to perform such a technique. The vast ocean formation emperor was indeed worthy of his title as the #1 formation master 10,000 years ago. However, Yuhan is about to break through now. Tianyang chuckled softly. As soon as he finished speaking, waves after waves of energy rippled out from the cultivation room. The fluctuations grew stronger and stronger. At the same time, the range and intensity of the fluctuations increased. Finally, when the range and intensity reached an extreme, boom, the cultivation barrier was broken, and his cultivation soared. A gust of cold air exploded from the cultivation room and spread throughout the courtyard. Obviously, when Ling Yuhan broke through to the second level of the origin transformation realm, the Ice Emperor's heavenly sword technique also broke through. Not bad. The 9-tailed moon fox bloodline and the 9 nether saint body are indeed powerful. Tianyang smiled. Although he still had spiral meridians, he did not care much about his physique and bloodline. Physique and bloodline were external things that would be useless one day. The only thing that could promote one's strength was one's own efforts. In his previous life, the Heavenly Sun also had spiral meridians. Although it was incomplete, it was still much weaker than the mortal body. However, even so, he still managed to cultivate to the peak of the heavenly completion realm, becoming the heavenly pole sword emperor who could dominate the world. Now that he had been reborn, he would not stop there. His journey was to explore the universe. "Master, I broke through." With a creak, the door of the cultivation room opened, and Ling Yuhan jumped out. Seeing Tianyang in the living room, she also shouted happily. Then, she leaped into Tianyang's arms. Tianyang didn't expect Ling Yuhan to have such a big reaction. He lost his balance, and the two of them fell on the sofa together. Tianyang looked at Ling Yuhan, who was on top of him and whose face had turned red within 0.3 seconds. He felt a little awkward. The other party was his disciple. How could the disciple suppress the master? However, although Ling Yuhan blushed, she didn't jump away immediately. Instead, she lowered her body and leaned closer to Tianyang's chest. Seeing this, Tianyang was a little confused. However, in the next moment, a thought flashed through his mind like lightning. Was there a problem with the breakthrough? Thinking of this, Tianyang became anxious. Ling Yuhan was his precious disciple. How could there be a problem? Even if there was a problem, he had to make up for it. The soul power of the peak of the heavenly ascension state surged out of his soul sea and scanned Ling Yuhan's body carefully. However, after scanning countless times, Tianyang didn't find any problem. Although the bloodline seal in her body was still half opened, it didn't seem to be a big deal. Moreover, if there was a problem with the breakthrough, how could it allow the Ice Emperor's Heaven Sword technique to advance further? Thinking of this, Tianyang felt relieved. He retracted his soul power and was about to sit up when his elbow accidentally touched a soft and elastic place. Tianyang's movements immediately froze. This little girl, she's quite something, a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. In the next moment, Tianyang's body trembled and expelled this thought from his mind. That was his disciple. When Ling Yuhan was touched, her body trembled as if she had been electrocuted. Her face was as red as an apple. Then, as if possessed, she opened her mouth. Master, young lord, I heard the news that the new student's training had ended, so I came to see you. Speaking of which, what kind of spirit-gathering formation did young lord set up? The effect is so good. Flying Sword hearty voice came from outside. Then, two knocks came directly from the door. Hearing this voice, Ling Yuhan was instantly angered half to death. He also knew that he could not continue with this, so he unhappily threw out a stream of true essence to open the door. Flying Sword also came in. Hey, both of you are here. Why didn't you open the door just now? Flying Sword sat on the sofa opposite Ling Yuhan and Tianyang very familiarly. He looked at Tianyang and Ling Yuhan with a puzzled expression. Tianyang was a little embarrassed. The blush on Ling Yuhan's face had long disappeared, but she still looked like she wanted to kill someone. Wasn't that right? If this guy hadn't suddenly come, she would have succeeded. Big Sister Yuhan, what kind of person was Flying Sword? He was the descendant of the mysterious Sky Blade Emperor, Dao Quangtian, and the owner of the Heavenly Blade Constitution. After activating the Heavenly Blade Constitution, not only did his cultivation and Blade Dao realm, but even his soul power had advanced by leaps and bounds. Although he didn't deliberately observe, Flying Sword noticed Ling Yuhan's murderous gaze immediately. Say another word, nonsense? Ling Yuhan changed her attitude, raised her eyebrows, and said. Hearing this, Flying Sword trembled all over. He didn't know how he had offended the young master's first disciple and possibly the future mistress. Unfortunately, Flying Sword didn't know that it was he who interrupted Ling Yuhan's plan to become the mistress that made Ling Yuhan so angry. Don't worry about her. I don't know what's wrong with her. Tianyang also looked at Ling Yuhan strangely, then smiled at Flying Sword. Hearing this, Flying Sword shrunk his neck. He felt that after Tianyang's words, Ling Yuhan's gaze on him became sharper. By the way, why are you here? Tianyang said. One wouldn't visit a temple without a reason. Flying Sword had just activated the Heavenly Blade Constitution not long ago, and his strength was soaring. Under normal circumstances, he could visit them a little later. For some reason, when he heard that the freshman trial had ended, he immediately came over. This speed was faster than Nangong Feng, who was deliberately looking for trouble. Flying Sword lived much further away than Nangong Feng. Of course, the first is to visit the young master. Flying Sword smiled. He was really grateful and respected Tianyang. In his opinion, Tianyang was mysterious and unfathomable, and he was indebted to him. Such a person was completely worthy of Dao Feiyang calling him a sincere young master. The second is, young master, you have passed the freshman trial and have the qualifications to enter the Void Thunder Hall in advance. It just so happens that my strength has been increasing slower recently, so I'll also go there. Chapter 290. Void Thunder Palace? Hearing this, Tianyang was a little confused. The Flying Sword also started to explain. According to legend, Sky Blue College had 3 treasures, and 2 of them were located in the inner court. Ordinary outer court students wouldn't be able to come into contact with them. Although Tianyang's strength was extraordinary, he didn't have the authority to enter the inner court. So, let's not talk about it for now. The only treasure in the outer court was the Void Thunder Palace that the Flying Sword had mentioned. According to legend, the Void Thunder Palace was created 5,000 years ago when an astonishing thunderstorm descended. The thunderbolts were like a rainstorm, crazily descending in a place south of Sky Blue College. That kind of power, that kind of scale, even Sea of Soul Realm experts wouldn't dare to recklessly probe it. And after the thunderstorm ended, that place had become a strange treasure land. It was filled with lightning liquid, and the power of lightning was extremely abundant. Moreover, lightning would appear from time to time. After that, the Almighty of Sky Blue College took action and transformed this treasure land. Using a high-grade spirit artifact to suppress it, it became the Void Thunder Palace of today. It was said that the Void Thunder Palace back then wasn't a high-grade spirit artifact, but a middle-grade one. However, it had undergone 5,000 years of lightning tempering. This Void Thunder Palace had also evolved from a normal middle-grade spirit artifact to a high-grade spirit artifact. The Void Thunder Palace is divided into 81 floors. The higher you go, the more lightning liquid there will be, and it will even form a sea of lightning. Moreover, the frequency of lightning strikes will also increase. I heard that at the 81 floors, there will even be lightning strikes at all times. The Flying Sword said solemnly. Hearing this, Tianyang licked his lips, appearing to be extremely interested. Ling Yuhan, who was very angry because she had ruined something good, was also attracted by the Void Thunder Palace. Of course, this Void Thunder Palace doesn't just let you be struck by lightning. There will be rewards for punishment. Apart from the first 10 floors, every 5 floors will receive a reward. The reward for the 15th floor will be collected on the 16th floor. The reward for the 20th floor will be collected on the 21st floor, and so on. As for the ranking on the Outer Yard Genius ranking, there's also a huge factor. It's because of the Void Lightning Hall. Wang Yang, who I killed before, managed to reach the 19th level in the Void Lightning Hall. As for the person ranked 3rd, Jiang Nanyu, who is known as the goddess of the outer court, has reached the 51st floor. As for the person ranked 1st, he has reached the 61st floor. The Flying Sword explained. Upon hearing this, Tianyang nodded his head lightly. This Void Lightning Hall seemed to be pretty extraordinary. If there was a sea of lightning everywhere, and lightning would strike from time to time, then it would definitely be a good place to cultivate lightning-attributed martial skills and temper the body. It was no wonder that such a place was called a treasure trove. Although the current Tianyang had mastered the Heavenly Dragon body to the extreme and could unleash the Heavenly Dragon Imperial Sword, its strength was still far from enough. There was still a long way to go before reaching the peak of the Heavenly Dragon body. Eating heaven and earth treasures was one way, and tempering one's body by going through trials was another way. Before reaching the peak of the Heavenly Dragon body, he could already shatter mountains with his fists. If he reached the peak of the Heavenly Dragon body, perhaps he could even shatter space. All right, let's go to the Void Lightning Hall. After the Flying Sword finished speaking, Tianyang slammed the table and made his decision. Anyway, it was boring to stay in the yard. Previously, when he was waiting for Ling Yuhan, he had set up some offensive formations. Combined with the vast Ocean Spirit Gathering formation, it was almost impossible for anyone to break in. However, the arrangement of these offensive formations had emptied a lot of Tianyang's pockets. The vast Ocean Spirit Gathering formation had already used up all the spiritual stones that Tianyang had snatched from the treasury of Sky Moon Country. Now, although Nangong Feng had replenished them, he had set up a few more offensive formations. If it were not for the Void Lightning Hall, Tianyang would have immediately flown back to the Northern Wilderness region to fight Sky Moon Country's Autumn Wind. Moreover, although the spiritual chi of heaven and earth in the yard was terrifying, it was obvious that he would not be able to break through much if he were to cultivate in seclusion at this time. It was better to explore the Void Lightning Hall, one of the 3 treasures of Sky Blue College. That's great. Hearing this, the Flying Sword was overjoyed. He immediately stood up, and Tianyang and Nangong Feng followed closely behind him. They were not familiar with Sky Blue College. Naturally, they were not as familiar with it as Flying Sword, a senior student. Look, the Outer Domain Genius Ranking and the Outer Domain Genius Ranking are moving again, just as Tianyang and Nangong Feng were heading to the Void Lightning Hall. The people guarding the hall were shocked again. This time, the light was so dazzling that it attracted the attention of everyone in the hall. The last time the Flying Sword made it to the 50th place, it was already shocking enough. This time, it can't be the 50th place again, right? Someone muttered, but the crowd ignored him. Instead, they all ran to the front of the ranking tablet and focused on it. Why did the 60th place to the 100th place drop by 1 place? Someone noticed a strange situation and could not help but ask. Hearing this, the crowd was shocked. Even the 60th place dropped by 1 place? Did this not mean that the person had made it to the 60th place and above? Then, the crowd looked up again. However, what shocked them was that the 40th place to the 60th place all dropped by 1 place as well. It can't be. This situation can only happen if someone who has never been on the Outer Yard Genius ranking suddenly made it to the 60th place. Someone who has never been on the Outer Yard Genius ranking suddenly made it to the top of the Outer Yard Genius ranking after a battle. The crowd below the ranking tablet looked at each other. They could see the disbelief in each other's eyes. After all, this kind of thing was too rare. If the person had made it to the 80th place, the 70th place, or even the 60th place, they could accept it. However, this newcomer had directly made it to the 30th place and above. He belonged to the top group of people in the entire Outer Yard. How could a newcomer make it to such a height in such a short time? It was unbelievable. Huang Hongrui, who was originally the 23rd place, also dropped by 1 place. Nangong Feng, who was originally the 21st place, also made it to the 22nd place. To be able to reach such a height, what kind of monster is this? The crowd looked at the ranking tablet in shock. Then, they finally found an unfamiliar name. 21st place, Tianyang. Tianyang, who is that? He's so powerful, a young girl said in shock. She was already at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation stage, but she was still a long way from the Outer Yard Genius ranking. Now, there was actually a newcomer who had made a leap and made it to such a height. How could she not be shocked? Tianyang? This name sounds familiar. One of them fell in a deep thought when he heard this. Then, a flash of inspiration came to him as he recalled something. Isn't this the number 1 newcomer? What? You said he's a newcomer? Chapter 291. So this is the Void Thunder Palace? It's really domineering. Heavenly Sun raised his eyebrows and said as he looked at the majestic palace that was floating above the sea of lightning and emitting a boundless aura. This Void Thunder Palace was undoubtedly an upper-grade spiritual weapon. In his previous life, Tianyang had even seen a supreme-grade spiritual weapon, so he naturally recognized it as an upper-grade spiritual weapon. However, this upper-grade spiritual weapon was somewhat out of Tianyang's expectations. It was originally a middle-grade spiritual weapon, but because of the spiritual sea, it was refined into an upper-grade spiritual weapon. If that's all, then it's fine. But why does this Void Thunder Palace contain a trace of Void Thunder power? It's not much weaker than the strongest upper-grade spiritual weapons. Tianyang said in surprise. This Void Thunder Palace was indeed extraordinary. Fortunately, this is the firmament territory and not the central region. If this was the central region, Sky Blue College would have been destroyed long ago. Tianyang muttered. An upper-grade spiritual weapon that was not weaker than a supreme-grade spiritual weapon was simply a great temptation for those powerful forces in the central region. A high-grade spiritual artifact could become the sect treasure of a second-grade faction, and a top high-grade spiritual artifact would have a great status even in a first-grade faction. It should be known that a first-grade sect was already a force that had an Emperor Realm expert in charge. Although Sky Blue College had a long history, it was only a third-grade force. It would be fine if it wanted to protect the Void Thunder Palace, which was originally a middle-grade spiritual weapon, but to protect an upper-grade spiritual weapon? No way. Fortunately, The forces in the firmament territory were generally not strong. Under normal circumstances, no experts would come here. Even if there were, ordinary Sea of Soul Realm experts would not be able to see through the Void Thunder Palace. As for heaven-reaching realm experts, that would be possible. However, except for a few shameless people that Tianyang knew, ordinary heaven-reaching realm experts would not attack Sky Blue College because of their status. Young Master, why are you so stunned? At this moment, Flying Sword's puzzled voice woke Tianyang up from his thoughts. Tianyang nodded and walked into the Void Thunder Hall with Flying Sword and Ling Yuhan. From the outside, the Void Thunder Hall looked extremely huge. Inside, it was even bigger. As the only treasure among the 3 treasures of Sky Blue College that was located in the outer courtyard, Void Thunder Hall had countless outer courtyard students at all times. Flying Sword had tried it a few times before, but at that time he was only in the Clear Chi realm, so no one paid attention to him. But now, as soon as Flying Sword stepped through the door, he felt several gazes on him. What's going on? Flying Sword's heart tightened. Could it be that someone was looking for trouble? Right, my ranking on the Outer Court's Genius Rankings is too strange, so it's normal for people to be unconvinced. However, those gazes only lingered on Flying Sword for a while before shifting to Tianyang. Is that the biggest dark horse this year? A freshman who actually made it to the 21st place. In other words, this young man defeated Nangong Feng and replaced him on the ranking. He looks quite handsome and gentle, but I didn't expect him to be so strong. He can even defeat Nangong Feng. Waves of whispers could be heard. Their voices were suppressed to an extremely low volume, but Tianyang and the other 2 were not ordinary people. Their 5 senses have been greatly enhanced, so all these voices fell into their ears. Hearing this, Tianyang's heart did not waver, but Flying Sword had a strange expression on his face. He thought they were talking about him, but he did not expect them to be talking about the young master. However, when did the young master replace Nangong Feng and become the 21st place on the Outer Court's Genius Rankings? Nangong Feng was a ruthless character. An ordinary person would not be able to do anything to him. Tianyang's cultivation was only at the peak of the 4th level of the Origin Transformation stage. So how could he defeat Nangong Feng, who could even fight a half-step to the Dao Fire Realm? Dao Feiyang was puzzled. Ling Yuhan, on the other hand, puffed out his chest proudly when he heard these discussions. Although the person who defeated Nangong Feng was not her, these discussions were just a small interlude, so Tianyang did not care much about it. Flying Sword was extremely shocked because this meant that Tianyang's reputation had spread throughout the entire outer court. He had entered the inner court for less than 3 months, but he had already reached a level that 99% of the seniors could not achieve. The young master was indeed the young master. The 3 of them walked at a moderate pace, and soon they arrived at the transportation portal of the 81st level of the Thunder Ocean. Entering the 81st level of the Thunder Ocean requires 500 contribution points. Contribution points are hard to come by, so under normal circumstances, students would not come. However, there are too many people in the outer court, so the Void Thunder Hall is bustling with people every day. Flying Sword said. Then he placed his student token in a groove beside the transportation portal. After 500 contribution points were deducted, the transportation portal's restriction was opened. I stopped at the 6th level last time, so I'll enter the 6th level directly this time. Young Master and Sister Yuhan will start from the 1st level since it's your first time here. When Flying Sword stepped into the transportation portal, he turned around to remind them. Hearing this, Tianyang nodded. Then, the 2 of them did the same thing. After 500 contribution points were deducted, they also entered the 81st level of the Thunder Ocean. A silver light flashed, and Tianyang's figure arrived at the 1st level of the Thunder Ocean. Above the vast Thunder Ocean, there were many small islands. However, they were all very small and could only accommodate a few people at most. The Heavenly Sun, on the other hand, landed on a small island. This seemed to be a separate space from the Thunder Ocean that formed 5,000 years ago. The aura of the 1st level of the Thunder Ocean was the same as the one he sensed from afar. However, this did not seem to be an independent challenge. Tianyang looked from afar and could see that there were other figures in other places of the first level of the Thunder Ocean. The first level of the Thunder Ocean requires you to shatter 100 lightning bolts or cross the Thunder Ocean to reach the transportation portal. At this moment, a voice sounded in Tianyang's mind. The voice was very calm, without any fluctuation of tone or emotion. It seemed to be the weapon spirit of the Void Thunder Hall. 100 lightning bolts or across the Thunder Ocean to reach the transportation portal to the second level of the Thunder Ocean. After Tianyang repeated his words, he understood what was going on. If I cross the Thunder Ocean, I don't have a map. Crossing here, and there might be a waste of time. So, it's better to shatter 100 lightning bolts directly. Tianyang's lips curled. Then he performed the Void Step secret technique and soared into the sky, rushing into the thunder clouds. Then, he released his true yuan and began to stir the thunder clouds crazily. The thunder clouds of the first level of the Thunder Ocean were very calm. Lightning bolts would only descend after a long time. This was obviously not good for Tianyang's plan of ending the battle quickly. Therefore, Tianyang wanted to stir up the thunder clouds. Make it. Chapter 292. Boom! After being disturbed by Tianyang, the thunder clouds in the first layer of the Thunder Sea that had been calm all this time were finally stirred. Countless lightning energy gathered, and flashes of lightning flashed in the clouds. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled and returned to the island. Other than him, the island was barren. Only he could attract the lightning, so he was not afraid that the lightning would miss him. Boom, boom, boom. The thunder clouds let out a deafening roar. In the next moment, countless lightning bolts struck down at the same time. Come on! Tianyang laughed loudly. The dragon force in his body surged. Not only did he not dodge, he even brazenly faced the attack. He was fearless. Seeing this abnormal scene, the crowd and the surroundings were also shocked. When did the thunder clouds in the first layer of the Thunder Sea become so powerful? A person who was sailing on the Thunder Sea was shocked. He looked at the area that was constantly releasing lightning bolts and was dumbfounded. Seeing this, the other person was also shocked. Let's go and take a look. Good. It's rare to see such a bizarre scene. Perhaps a treasure will appear. That person said excitedly. Then, the two of them hurriedly changed their direction and headed toward the island where Tianyang was. Their thunderboat was a unique boat in the Void Thunder Hall. With this boat, they could cross the Thunder Sea and reach the teleportation point to the second layer of the Thunder Sea. With this thunderboat, they could walk on the Thunder Sea. Otherwise, it would be fine to walk on the Thunder Sea for a short period of time. However, after a long time, the Thunder Sea contained majestic lightning energy. Even your mother would not be able to recognize it. Awesome. Tianyang stood on the island and opened his chest to receive the countless lightning bolts. He laughed heartily. He had even taken off his moonlight armor, leaving only a white robe that was meant to be worn, but did not have any defensive properties. The lightning bolts struck his chest without any hindrance. The lightning bolts were easily blocked by the heavenly dragon body. However, the lightning energy contained in this lightning bolt entered Tianyang's body and organs. If others were to discover this situation, they would definitely panic. After all, the power of lightning was an extremely terrifying power. Moreover, the human body was extremely fragile. If the power of lightning went berserk, perhaps his internal organs would be destroyed. At that time, he would not be able to keep his life. However, Tianyang did the opposite. He used the power of lightning to temper not only his physical body, but also his internal organs and countless other organs. The power of thunder and lightning surged within Tianyang's body, giving Tianyang a sense of numbness. As the power of thunder and lightning flowed, countless impurities were forced out and expelled by Tianyang. Just a few thunderbolts had strengthened Tianyang's already terrifying physical strength by a little. Ha ha! Again! Tianyang laughed loudly. With a flick of his right hand, a stream of true yuan shot out and rushed into the thundercloud that was still in a berserk state, adding fuel to the fire. The thundercloud seemed to be enraged. It did not care about the level restriction of the first lightning sea and completely released the power of thunder and lightning in its body. Boom! Boom! Boom, boom. Countless thunderbolts struck down without any hindrance. Without exception, they struck Tianyang's chest. Damn, that guy is so fierce. On a small thunderbolt, two people looked at Tianyang, who was previously thought to be a treasure, in shock. At this moment, Tianyang was bathed in lightning, but was not injured at all. On the contrary, the more the thunderbolt struck, the more carefree Tianyang was. Could it be that this guy wants to challenge the bombardment of 100 thunderbolts before going to the second lightning sea? One of them guessed. Hearing this, the person beside him was stunned and said in disbelief, "It can't be. The bombardment of 100 thunderbolts is extremely difficult. No one has succeeded in so many years. Can this young man do it?" That person questioned. Hearing this, the person who spoke earlier laughed. "Anyway, we have a lot of time now. Why don't we continue to watch this young man endure the thunderbolts? If he succeeds, you have to treat me to a drink." Hearing this, the young man beside him laughed. "If he doesn't succeed, you have to treat me to a drink." Of course. At this moment on the small island, Tianyang also noticed the two people sitting cross-legged in the middle of the lightning sea. Both of them were facing his small thunderbolt. Although he was curious about the novelty of the thunderbolt, Tianyang did not care. Two illuminating Qi realm cultivators were nothing to him now. At this moment, there were only 9 thunderbolts left out of the 100. The thundercloud seemed to be aware of the situation and began to reduce the frequency of its thunderbolts. Every time it struck, only one thunderbolt would strike down. As for this lightning, it was much more powerful than the previous lightning bolts that were randomly smashing into the ground. Interesting. Seeing this, Tianyang's lips curled up slightly as he looked at the thunderbolts that fell from the sky. Boom! Then, the thunderbolt struck Tianyang's chest. After absorbing the power of the thunderbolt, Tianyang's physical strength increased a little. That's right. This lightning strike contains a lot more lightning energy than the previous ones. Tianyang's eyes lit up as he looked at the thundercloud. After pondering for a while, he slashed out with his sword. The sword Qi instantly traversed through space and hit the thundercloud. At this moment, the thundercloud suddenly trembled and the remaining 8 thunderbolts struck down. Damn, this guy is crazy. He actually dared to challenge the thundercloud. The last 9 thunderbolts are already extremely powerful. Even those who can reach the 5th level of the lightning sea might not be able to do it. This guy not only challenged the 100 thunderbolts, he actually increased the difficulty. This guy is doomed. The two people could not sit still and stood up in a hurry. They looked at Tianyang and the thunderbolts in the sky in shock. The 7 thunderbolts were only slightly stronger than the 91st thunderbolt. However, the last thunderbolt in the middle was different. The rest of the thunderbolts were blue-purple in color. Only the middle thunderbolt was pitch black. The power of the Void Thunderbolt. This Void Thunderbolt Hall is really something. They even took out such a thing. Seeing this, Tianyang smiled and immediately soared into the sky, rushing towards the 8 thunderbolts. Seeing this, the two people were even more shocked. This guy, he's actually not running away. He's actually courting death. At this moment, Tianyang and the 8 thunderbolts collided. Boom, boom, boom. Countless explosions instantly erupted. The Sky Dragon's dragon core released a large amount of dragon power, and Tianyang's body was covered in light. In the next moment, a terrifying dragon roar exploded from Tianyang's body and collided with the Void Thunderbolt. Boom! A deafening explosion instantly spread throughout the first level of the Lightning Sea. At the last moment, Tianyang used the Devouring Heaven Seal and devoured the power of the Void Thunderbolt without any waste. The power of his physical body increased tremendously. After that, Tianyang stepped into the teleportation gate that appeared in front of him and headed towards the second level of the Lightning Sea. As for the two youths in the Sea of Thunder, they stared dumbfoundedly at the clear sky left behind by Sky Sun's departure. Chapter 293. The thunderclouds in the Void Lightning Hall were formed by the Void Lightning Hall absorbing the lightning energy from the Sea of Lightning. Within the thunderclouds, there was a trace of the legendary Void Lightning energy, which was the source of the Void Lightning Hall's power. Therefore, No matter how much lightning energy was drawn out, it was impossible to disperse the thunderclouds. In the history of Sky Blue College, no one had ever been able to disperse the thunderclouds. Even the thunderclouds in the Void Lightning Hall's first layer of Lightning Sea were the same. However, at this moment, it had appeared in front of two ordinary ninth-level Bright Chi Realm disciples. It was a miracle that had never happened before. That was a thundercloud with the Void Lightning energy as its foundation. How could it disperse just like that? The gentle sunlight poured down without any hindrance, and the two Sky Blue College disciples on the Thunderboat were both dumbfounded. That was a thundercloud, the thundercloud of the Void Lightning Hall. Could it be that his provocation of the thundercloud caused the Void Lightning energy in the thundercloud to be drawn out? Impossible. How strong is the Void Lightning energy? How could an ordinary disciple withstand it? If that was the case, then that youth would have died long ago. How could a youth who can fly be ordinary? The two of them argued. At this moment, one of them suddenly thought of something and opened his mouth and eyes wide as he stuttered. Could the black thunderbolt that was surrounded by 7 thunderbolts be the Void Lightning energy? That's impossible. If it was the Void Lightning, then even an 8th or 9th level origin transformation stage martial artist wouldn't be able to survive. But other than this, do you have any other explanation? The two of them argued to no avail. In the end, they could only stick to their own opinions and leave. However, after the two of them left, the news of the mysterious youth dispersing the thunderclouds in the first layer of Lightning Sea spread like wildfire and spread throughout the entire first layer of Lightning Sea. Most people snorted disdainfully, while a small number of people listened with serious expressions. Disperse the thunderclouds. Tianyang didn't know what kind of waves his previous actions had caused in the first layer of the Sea of Lightning. However, even if he knew, Tianyang wouldn't care. At the moment, Tianyang was still basking in the lightning. The second test of the Lightning Sea was the same as crossing the Lightning Sea and enduring the lightning strikes. It was unknown what kind of changes there would be in crossing the Lightning Sea, but this time, enduring the lightning strikes would increase by 100 times. In other words, Tianyang had to endure 200 lightning strikes to pass this stage. Not bad, not bad. The more the better. The more the better. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up as he allowed the countless lightning bolts to rain down on his body. Rays of light circulated around his heavenly dragon physique, resisting the bombardment of the lightning bolts. However, the thunderbolts in the second level of the Thunder Sea seemed to be a little weak. It must be an illusion. No matter what, the second level should be much stronger than the first level. Tianyang muttered. He didn't know that in his body, the Void Lightning energy that was above all other thunderbolts flowed through his countless meridians and finally gathered in his heart. In his heart, the heavenly dragon core was constantly revolving, and at the same time, it also absorbed the Void Lightning energy. It drove the entire heavenly dragon physique. In addition to the Nirvana force, there was also a trace of the Void Lightning energy. The quality of the lightning in the second level isn't very good. Well, I heard that the first 10 levels of the Lightning Sea were prepared for students of the Clear Chi realm. Of course, it's trash. Tianyang muttered. Then, he attracted the thunderclouds and quickly completed the second level of the Lightning Sea. However, this time, there was no second Void Lightning energy, which made Tianyang a little disappointed. After that, he easily passed the third level and the fourth level as well. Although the higher the level, the greater the amount of thunderbolts required, Tianyang's method of attracting thunderclouds was tried and tested. Other than the first time, when he lost control, he smoothly completed the first level of the Lightning Sea. Finally, Tianyang arrived at the 11th level of the Lightning Sea. It was still a monotonous Lightning Sea, but the Void Lightning energy contained in the azure lightning liquid below his feet was much stronger than the 10th level. If it was said that Origin Transformation Realm cultivators could still stay in the Lightning Sea for a short period of time in the first 10 levels, then the 11th level of the Lightning Sea was something that even the experts on the genius ranking of the Outer Yard had to be wary of. Moreover, the heaven and earth spiritual chi in the surrounding air was much more abundant. It had already surpassed the amount of sky blue college in the outside world, reaching a level that was 4 times that of the northern wilderness region. Although it was still a distance away from the small courtyard in the Azure Ocean Spirit Gathering Formation, it wasn't far off. If it's a higher level, the amount of heaven and earth spiritual chi will definitely be more. No wonder the people at the top of the genius ranking of the outer yard haven't changed even once in a few months. The stronger one is the higher the level of the Void Lightning Hall. The higher the level, the better the conditions for cultivation. This way, the speed of growth of one's strength will be much faster. Tianyang smiled as he saw through Sky Blue College's goal. This arrangement was nothing more than to let the students at the bottom bounce back, rise up in the face of adversity, and unleash their greatest potential. The potential that was unleashed under such circumstances would definitely allow an ordinary student to shine brighter than the average genius. This way, the mediocre could become a genius, and a genius could become even more of a genius. Sky Blue College's methods were truly extraordinary. Of course, only a big college like Sky Blue College had such a foundation. If it were a small college, not to mention the Void Lightning Hall, the students at the bottom would have lost all confidence before they could even bounce back. There seems to be a lot more things in this lightning sea. Tianyang looked around, and his soul energy trembled slightly. Immediately, he captured a strange thing. With a wave of his hand, the power of lightning condensed, and a lightning pearl formed by lightning shot out from the lightning sea. A strong suction force exploded from Tianyang's palm. In the next moment, the lightning pearl was caught by Tianyang without any resistance. This lightning pearl is not bad. The power of lightning it contains is much stronger than the lightning sea at the 10th level. This way, even if I'm not in the Void Lightning Hall, I can still use lightning to refine my body. Tianyang smiled, then raised his head and looked at the sky that was filled with thunderclouds. In the thunderclouds, rays of golden light surged, emitting a boundless and powerful aura. The 11th level test. Under the strengthened version of lightning, resist 50 bolts of lightning. Chapter 294. From the 10th level to the 11th level, there was a qualitative change. The first 10 levels of the lightning sea were targeted at students in the illuminating chi state. However, the last 9 and 10 levels were difficult for even the best half-step to primordial transformation realm cultivators to pass. However, the sword spirit, Zhou Tong, had reached the 10th level of the lightning sea with his half-step to primordial transformation realm cultivation. He had even conquered the 11th level. Tianyang had spent his illuminating chi state in the northern wilderness region. Therefore, he could not break Zhou Tong's record. However, Tianyang did not care about the record. As long as he could make himself stronger, the so-called record was nothing. Boom! A golden lightning that released a terrifying aura suddenly descended from the sky and landed heavily on Tianyang's body. Heavenly Sun's skin trembled slightly before he managed to dissolve the power of the thunderbolt. The thunderbolt power contained within the thunderbolt was devoured by Heavenly Sun without reservation. The 11th level of the lightning sea is indeed extraordinary. This golden lightning is much stronger than the violet lightning from before. However, compared to the pitch-black void lightning, it is still much weaker. Tianyang sighed. The lightning from before, even the 10th level of the lightning sea, only made his sky dragon body shine a little. However, the 11th level of lightning made his skin tremble slightly. Although it was still nothing much, he could see the changes in the lightning. Moreover, the power of the lightning contained in this golden lightning was much stronger than the 10th level of the lightning sea. Originally, it would have been extremely fortunate if the lightning had been able to increase Tianyang's physical strength by a little. However, this golden lightning had actually increased the strength of his internal organs by a huge margin. I wonder what the 50th and 60th levels will be like. If there are 81 levels, what about the top level of the lightning sea? Tianyang smiled faintly, then continued to attack. Tianyang easily received the 50 lightning bolts from the 11th level. The 12th, 13th, and 15th levels were the same. After Tianyang received the 300 lightning bolts from the 15th level, Tianyang's expression changed slightly as he stepped into the portal. Then, a ray of light appeared before him. In the Void Lightning Hall, after the first 10 layers of the Lightning Sea, there would be rewards for every 5 layers of the Lightning Sea. In that case, Tianyang would naturally receive the first reward after passing the 15th level. I've heard that the rewards of the Lightning Sea are extremely extraordinary. The Middle-Earth rank Illusionary Lightning Spear was also born from this. Although the reward for the 15th level is only the first time, the lowest level, it shouldn't be bad. Tianyang chuckled. Then, the ray of light gradually dissipated, revealing what was wrapped in the light. A total of 500,000 spirit stones appeared before him. 500,000 spirit stones. Tianyang's eyebrows twitched slightly. Although it's nothing much to me, but for the 15th level, this reward is indeed quite valuable. Looks like Sky Blue College has really invested a lot in nurturing their students. Tianyang chuckled and reached out to keep it in his space bag. His cultivation of Tian Yuan and True Yuan required a huge amount of cultivation resources. Ordinary spirit stones would not be able to satisfy his needs. Otherwise, why would he spend so much effort to set up the vast Ocean Spirit Gathering Array? The power of the vast Ocean Spirit Gathering Array was more powerful than hundreds of millions of spirit stones. It could help Tianyang save a lot of spirit stones. Then, the test for the 16th level of the Lightning Sea is 400 lightning bolts. TSK, it's indeed doubled. Tianyang chuckled. Then he began his new journey of being struck by lightning. Of course, while being struck by lightning, Tianyang's control of lightning also became stronger. His skin, muscles, limbs, bones, and even his internal organs showed a tough luster. Tianyang's physical strength also improved rapidly while being struck by lightning. As expected of the 16th level of the Lightning Sea, just the occasional lightning bolts that appear while walking on the Lightning Sea can make me so miserable. Flying Sword sighed. He was sitting on a thunderboat and drifting on the Lightning Sea. Unlike Tianyang and Ling Yuhan, who had just entered the academy, Flying Sword was very familiar with everything in the Lightning Sea. For example, this thunderboat could not be found outside. Instead, it drifted in the Lightning Sea. Only those who were lucky could encounter it or catch it before putting it into their space bag. Flying Sword also found a thunderboat in the 9th level of the Lightning Sea. That was why he could travel safely in the Lightning Sea. At this moment, he had also withstood countless lightning strikes. His physical strength had increased tremendously. Moreover, through facing the lightning bolts, he had sharpened his saber skills. His saber Dao had also become stronger. He had also gained a lot of enlightenment regarding the cultivation of True Yuan. If he went back and cultivated for a while, he would definitely welcome another surge in his strength. This was the strength of the Void Lightning Hall. If not, how could it be called the 3 treasures of Sky Blue College together with the extremely precious items in the inner yard? Unfortunately, the higher he went, the stronger the lightning bolts were and the harder it was to pass. Ordinary students would not be able to sustain the surge in their strength. F***CK. Another one. At this moment, the thunderclouds in the sky rumbled. Another terrifying lightning bolt struck down. Flying Sword's expression changed slightly. He slashed with the saber in his hand. Boom! The saber chi and the lightning bolt collided, causing a loud explosion. In the next moment, Flying Sword saber chi was unable to disperse the lightning bolt. No wonder a genius like Nangong Feng could only reach the 21st level. This Void Lightning Hall is indeed powerful. After another 3 slashes, Flying Sword finally broke the lightning bolt. However, the True Yuan in his body had decreased by a lot. However, after these 4 slashes, I found some weaknesses in my saber skills. If I had concentrated my True Yuan a little more, I would have been able to break it with just 1 slash. Flying Sword kept his black saber and said in a low voice. This was the terror of the Sky Blade physique. With just a few slashes, ordinary people would not be able to comprehend anything. However, not only did Flying Sword see the problem, he even found a solution. With such a unique physique, it would be difficult for him not to improve. Boom, 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 boom. Suddenly, a terrifying explosion came from not far away. Flying Sword's expression changed. He turned the thunder ship around and focused his true yuan in his eyes as he looked into the distance. In the sky, a bare-chested young man was still laughing while facing the countless lightning bolts. Ha ha! My sky dragon physique has finally reached the peak. At this moment, the long sword in the young man's hand flashed. A terrifying lightning bolt burst out from the sword and shattered the countless lightning bolts. Even the Thunder God sword has improved. This Void Lightning Hall is indeed a good place. In the next moment, the young man stepped into the teleportation gate that appeared in front of him and disappeared from the 16th level. As for Flying Sword, he stood there in a daze as he looked at the sky that had returned to normal. Chapter 295. Naturally, the 17th and 18th lightning seas posed no difficulty to Tianyang. Even Nangong Feng, who was originally ranked 21st, would have to be extremely careful in order to cross the 18th lightning sea. It would take him a few days to reach the transportation point. However, Tianyang's strength was far beyond the 21st ranked on the Outer Court's genius ranking. Even Tianyang wasn't sure of his true strength. However, it shouldn't be too difficult for him to get into the top 10. The 19th lightning sea is a little different. Tianyang looked around. The lightning aura around him was much stronger than the 18th lightning sea, but it was still within the normal range. The lightning in the sky was still golden in color, but the golden color had become a little more intense. However, Tianyang still felt that something was different. His ears twitched slightly as voices entered his ears. Selling lightning pearls. Lightning pearls extracted from the 18th lightning sea contain powerful lightning energy and have an extremely strong body tempering effect. How much? 100 contribution points each. Sure, that's a fair price. I'll take 70 or 80 of them. As the voices entered Tianyang's ears, Tianyang's mouth twitched. Why are there people doing business? Tianyang turned his head and looked in the direction of the voices. In the distance, he saw an island that was many times larger than the one he was standing on. It towered above the lightning sea. On the island, he could vaguely see a city. There's actually a city in the lightning sea? Interesting. Let's go take a look. Tianyang's lips curled as he leaped into the air and executed the Void Step secret technique. He exploded with a speed that was 100 times faster than an ordinary peak 4th level origin transformation stage cultivator as he flew towards the huge city. At this speed, it didn't take long for Tianyang to traverse hundreds of miles of lightning sea and arrive at the city. It really is a city. Moreover, there are quite a lot of people. Tianyang surveyed his surroundings and discovered that outside the city, there were people going in and out. People were coming and going, making the city seem extraordinarily lively. Interesting. The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up slightly. Although it would only take him some time to cross the 19th lightning sea, since he had encountered this city, he could not go in and take a look. After that, Tianyang stepped forward and walked into the city. This city is called the Thunder Sea City. However, this is only the Thunder Sea City in the 19th layer of the Thunder Sea. It is formed by some students who are unable to cross the Thunder Sea for the time being, but do not wish to leave. There is only one Thunder Sea City in the entire 19th layer of the Thunder Sea. No wonder there are so many people here. Tianyang opened up his ears and eavesdropped on the conversations of the people around him. Soon, he understood the basic information of this city. Then, Tianyang smiled and walked toward the spiritual medicine house where everyone was talking. The Thunder Sea City was built by the people of the Sky Blue Academy, and the spiritual medicine house was the same. It was said that the herbs and elixirs in the spiritual medicine house were comparable to those in the outside world. Therefore, one could buy them without any worries. There would not be any shortage of goods, just because this was the Void Thunder Hall. I am using the Thunderbolt Force in the Thunder Sea to refine my body. However, there will still be some Thunderbolt Force left in my body. Even the Devouring Heaven Seal cannot devour it. Unless I wait for the Thunderbolt Force to be automatically absorbed by my body, I will need a Grade 3 elixir the thunder spiritual pill. Tianyang's heart skipped a beat. He was very clear about the situation in his body. He knew how much thunderbolt force was left in his body and how much had been absorbed. It was very difficult to use the thunderbolt force. However, with the help of the thunder spiritual pill, it would be very easy to use it. Thinking of this, Tianyang did not hesitate and walked toward the spiritual medicine house. The spiritual medicine house was located in the most central and conspicuous area of the Thundersea City. Tianyang did not walk for long before he arrived in front of the spiritual medicine house. The spiritual medicine house was built by Sky Blue College. It was extremely tall. Although it was not majestic, it had a delicate and exquisite temperament. Elixirs were a necessity for cultivators. Naturally, there was a great demand for them. Therefore, there were many people in front of the spiritual medicine house. It was very lively. Tianyang took a look at the spiritual medicine house and walked in directly. "Hello, sir. What kind of elixirs do you want?" Not long after he walked in, a maid came up to him and asked with a smile, "I want some herbs. I wonder if the spiritual medicine house has them." Tianyang asked. If the spiritual medicine house only sold elixirs, it would be troublesome. He could not go out and then come in again. Hearing this, the maidservant was startled. A look of surprise flashed across her beautiful eyes. Medicinal ingredients, that was something that only alchemists needed. This young man looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. It was already amazing that he could reach the 19th level of the Thunder Sea with his martial cultivation. How could he be an alchemist? However, she quickly hid her surprise and smiled. "The herbs are also for sale." Hearing this, Tianyang nodded slightly and reported the Thunder Spiritual Elixirs herbs that he had prepared. "Elixir Spiritual Flower, Thundergrass, Plenilindu," Tianyang said. Hearing this, the maid was stunned. Her delicate face was filled with astonishment. How come she had never heard of these herbs? She had worked in the spiritual medicine house for a long time. Even if she had not eaten pork, she had seen pigs run. Her ability to identify herbs was even better than some cultivators. However, she did not recognize any of these herbs. Could it be that he was here to cause trouble? Just as the maid was about to speak, a cold voice came from the side. "Where did this country bumpkin come from? How dare you fool us with a few obscure herbs? Don't you know that this is the spiritual medicine house? Is this a place where you can be so presumptuous?" A cold laugh came. Hearing this, Tianyang frowned slightly and turned around. He saw a somewhat feminine, handsome man standing behind him. He looked arrogantly at Tianyang with a face full of disdain. Seeing this, Tianyang was slightly displeased. He was buying herbs. What did it have to do with you? "I say, Xiaoyu, don't bother with this kind of person. You don't have to work in the spiritual medicine house anymore. Follow me, Dongfang Xiang, and you won't have to suffer." Seeing that Tianyang did not say a word, the feminine man laughed coldly. He walked past Tianyang and said to the maid. Hearing this, the maid hurriedly took a few steps back. "Young Master Dongfang, I've already rejected you many times. Please don't bother me." Hearing this, Dongfang Xiang's face turned cold. The two muscular men behind him walked up and said sternly, "Young Master Dongfang wants you because he thinks highly of you. You dare to reject young Master Dongfang when you are not obedient?" The muscular man shouted coldly. Then he released a tyrannical aura, causing the maid to take a few more steps back until she hit the wall. There was no way out. Seeing this, Dongfang Xiang's eyes flashed with lust. "Xiaoyu, if you don't go back with me, these two big brothers might not be able to hold themselves back." Hearing this, the maid's face turned pale and her body trembled. Dongfang Xiang's notorious reputation for bullying and seducing young girls, then raping and killing them, had long been known in Sky Blue College. Most people would be wary of the Dongfang family behind Dongfang Xiang. As a result, Dongfang Xiang had been arrogant until now. Now, after being rejected so many times, Dongfang Xiang finally could not hold himself back and wanted to snatch her away. Seeing that the maid did not speak, the two muscular men behind Dongfang Xiang laughed maliciously and walked up to her while rubbing their fists. However, before they could take a few steps, they were blocked by a long sword. A calm voice came from the side. Chapter 296. Tianyang's indifferent voice rang out in the spiritual medicine house. On top of the killer's sword, a blood-red light shone. It released a dominating aura that blocked the two men's path. Feeling the sharp aura from the killing sword, the two burly men did not dare to move forward. This aura seemed to be able to kill them with just a slight movement. This young man was actually so terrifying. Hearing this, Dongfang Xiang's face darkened. He looked at Tianyang and said arrogantly, "Who do you think you are?" "I'm Dongfang Xiang from the Dongfang family. No one in Thunder Sea City dares to offend me. I'm in a good mood now. You look like a new face. Kneel down, cripple your own cultivation, and shout I was wrong 3 times. Then get lost." Dongfang Xiang had an arrogant look on his face as he looked down at Tianyang with disdain. He was born in the Dongfang family, one of the 4 most powerful families in Night Dome City. Even in Sky Blue College, very few people dared to offend him. Now, a new face actually dared to interrupt him and snatch a woman? Crippling one's own cultivation and kneeling down to admit his mistake would be considered as him being merciful. Dongfang Xiang thought to himself. When Tianyang heard this, his eyes narrowed and a dangerous light flashed in his eyes. Crippling one's own cultivation and kneeling down to admit his mistake. The last person who dared to say that to him seemed to be dead. "Why aren't you moving your sword?" Seeing that Tianyang did not move, Dongfang Xiang said coldly, "If you don't move it away, I'm going to make a move." Hearing this, a sneer flashed across Tianyang's face, while the maidservant immediately panicked. "Young master, Dongfang Xiang is at the 6th level of the origin transformation stage. The 2 burly men are also at the 5th level of the origin transformation stage. Behind him is the Dongfang family. You can't afford to offend them. Xiaoyu has been taken away, but if she implicates you, that's enough. You don't have to say any more." Before the maid Xiaoyu could finish speaking, she was interrupted by Dongfang Xiang. Thinking that the woman he liked was speaking up for someone else, Dongfang Xiang felt irritated. "Nyota, Nyoer, kill him," Dongfang Xiang said coldly. Hearing this, the crowd's expression changed. Dongfang Xiang was actually so overbearing. Just because of a disagreement, he wanted to kill. However, when they thought about the Dongfang family behind Dongfang Xiang, their faces darkened. So what if he was domineering? Could they change anything? Hearing this, Xiaoya's expression changed drastically, and she hurriedly shouted, "Run!" "Shut up, you bitch!" Seeing that Xiaoyu still dared to speak, Dongfang Xiang angrily shouted and raised his hand to hit her. At this moment, Tianyang's expression turned cold. The killing sword in his hand instantly emitted a blinding light. It's useless to have this arm. Even if it's broken, it can still benefit the people. Tianyang coldly harumphed and pointed his finger. A ray of light that resembled sword chi shot out. In the next moment, the dazzling light swept past Dongfang Xiang's shoulder and tore his right arm apart. The severed arm spun in the air and blood gushed out. Seeing this, the crowd widened their eyes in shock. Dongfang Xiang, a member of the Dongfang family, had actually lost his right arm. This guy is crazy. He actually dared to cut off Dongfang Xiang's right arm. This guy is dead for sure. The crowd burst into cold laughter, as if Tianyang, who had helped, was some kind of idiot. Hearing this, Tianyang coldly laughed. He raised his killing sword and an aura burst out. The terrifying aura instantly shut everyone's mouths. In the next moment, Tianyang's gaze locked onto the 2 burly men. At this moment, Dongfang Xiang finally reacted. "Ah!" Dongfang Xiang screamed as blood gushed out from the wound on his shoulder. In the next moment, Dongfang Xiang's aura weakened. My arm is broken!" Dongfang Xiang crazily screamed. In the next moment, Dongfang Xiang stared at Tianyang and roared, "Nyota, Nyoer, what are you waiting for? Kill him! Kill him! I'm going to tear him into pieces!" Dongfang Xiang roared. Hearing this, the 2 burly men revealed a sinister smile. "You actually dared to cut off young Master Dongfang's right arm. I have to say, you've got guts. Guts bigger than a coward like you." In the face of the burly men's disdain, Tianyang merely raised his eyelids and laughed lightly. He had even killed the strongest genius of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Zhua. Why would he be afraid of a useless piece of trash like Dongfang Xiang? After all, he had already offended 2 of the 4 big families. Since that was the case, he wasn't afraid of offending them even more. What did you say? Hearing this, the person who spoke earlier was instantly enraged. You're courting death. Mystic class upper grade martial skill, deflagration fist. Nyota roared. His 5th level origin transformation stage, true energy completely exploded, forming a ball of burning flames in his right hand. He viciously attacked Tianyang. Seeing this, Tianyang coldly snorted and raised the killing sword in his hand. You have a nerve to show off such a trashy fist technique. Tianyang's indifferent voice sounded. Hearing this, Nyota was even more enraged. He punched out, colliding with the killing sword. Bang! A muffled sound of collision exploded. In the next moment, Nyoda's body trembled, and he hurriedly retreated a few steps. Then, his face turned pale, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Moreover, on his fist, there were several bone-deep wounds that were bleeding profusely. Seeing this scene, the crowd was even more astonished. What? A peak 4th level origin transformation stage martial artist actually injured Nyoda to this extent with one strike? This person is definitely not an ordinary person. The crowd exclaimed in shock. At this moment, Nyoda's face instantly turned cold. Kid, I admit that you have some strength. But let me tell you, the difference in cultivation level isn't that easy to make up for. Neo Air, attack together. Mystic class, peerless martial skill, rock-shattering fist. Nyota madly roared as his 5th level origin transformation stage, true essence, surged. Hearing this, Neo Air also attacked together, charging towards Tianyang. Billowing auras burst out from their bodies, even blowing the things in the spirit medicine house askew. Some of the weaker people even retreated a few steps, their faces filled with astonishment. These 2 people were nothing if they were alone, but when they joined forces, they were actually so powerful. A joint attack technique? Tianyang's heart shook as he saw the reason for the sudden increase in their strength. Hearing this, Nyota and Nyo Air coldly laughed. You actually saw through it? At least you have some foresight. But it still can't save your life. Rock-shattering fists explode. Nyota and Neo Air madly roared at the same time. In the next moment, 2 enormous fists charged towards Tianyang at the same time. Even a 7th level origin transformation stage martial artist would be moved by the peerless might. Even a 6th level origin transformation stage martial artist felt the threat to his life. This fist was enough to kill a 6th level origin transformation stage martial artist. However, in the face of this fist, Tianyang merely shook his head. If you use a joint attack technique to this extent, your master will probably be angered to death. Thunder God's sword break. Tianyang lightly laughed as he slashed out with the killing sword in his hand. An enormous bolt of lightning transformed into a violent sword light as it violently shot out. In the next moment, rock-shattering fist exploded. Even Nyota and Neo Air were blasted into charcoal by this lightning sword light. Chapter 297. With a single sword strike, 2 5th level origin transformation stage martial artists who were infamous in Thunder Sea City had died an unnatural death. Everyone was shocked by this scene. Tianyang did not make a move earlier, so no one could see his cultivation level. However, judging from his age, he should be quite young. In reality, his cultivation level was only at the peak of the 4th level of the origin transformation stage. In front of Nyota and Neo Air, who had mastered the combination attack technique, he was like an ant. However, it was this ant that killed Nyota and Neo Air. Moreover, he used an extremely strange method to turn Nyota and Neo Air into charcoal. TSK, you dare to kidnap a civilian girl with this level of skill? Tianyang put away his sword and looked at the 2 people who had already turned into charcoal on the ground. They had already lost all signs of life. Those people in the Dark Abyss mountain range before were all stronger than these 2. They hadn't even gone crazy yet, but in the end, These two people had already engaged in the shady business of kidnapping women. Oh, they were not the main characters. However, the crime of assisting in the crime was enough for them to be sentenced to death. You actually killed them. Dongfang Xiang finally reacted. He looked at Tianyang and mocked. You killed them. You are provoking our Dongfang family. Kneel down and admit your wrongs. Cripple your own cultivation and break your legs. Then I can spare your life. Otherwise, you will suffer the wrath of the Dongfang family. Dongfang Xiang said arrogantly with a fearless expression. After all, in his opinion, there was almost no one in Thunder Sea City who dared to go against the Dongfang family. The Dongfang family was a supreme legend in Night Dome City. Oh, Tianyang chuckled when he heard this. The corners of his mouth curled up. What if I don't? Then you will definitely die, Dongfang Xiang said with certainty. His face was full of mockery. It would have been fine if you did not care about other people's business. Why did you have to save them? Now, if you don't cripple your own cultivation and kneel down and admit your wrongs, then you can wait for your death. Dongfang Xiang laughed heartily. Tianyang felt that there was something wrong with this guy's head. No matter how strong the Dongfang family was, it was only because the mountain was high and the emperor was far away. If he killed him now, what could the Dongfang family do? What? You still won't admit your mistake? Seeing that Tianyang didn't move at all and was looking at him with a strange gaze, Dongfang Xiang felt that he was being looked down upon and became furious. Then, don't blame me for personally taking action. Earth tier, low-grade martial skill, explosive blaze. Dongfang Xiang roared. In the next moment, his left hand began to circulate Zhen Yuan, igniting a ball of flame. Clenching it into a fist, he attacked. This punch was many times stronger than Yoda and Neo Air's rupturing fist. It also had the strength to kill an ordinary 5th-level origin transformation stage martial artist. However, Tianyang seemed to be too lazy to even hold his sword and directly punched out. Tongming Fist. Hearing this, Dongfang Xiang laughed out loud. Tongming Fist? This kind of fist technique that can't even be considered a martial technique? You actually dare to? After 3 explosions, layers upon layers of hidden energy, wave after wave, directly destroyed his bursting flames. Furthermore, it went one step further and shattered the bones in his hand. At this moment, Dongfang Xiang's right arm was broken, and even his left hand was crippled. Dongfang Xiang let out a blood-curdling scream, then roared crazily. You actually dare to cripple my left hand. You're dead. Even if you kneel down and apologize, I'll still kill you. Dongfang Xiang roared crazily, the Zhen Yuan in his body surging violently. In the next moment, he charged towards Tianyang. Die! Dongfang Xiang roared. However, Tianyang did not plan to waste any more words with this guy. Facing Dongfang Xiang's charge, Tianyang decisively punched out. Dragon King's Divine Fist. As a heaven-tier martial skill, the Dragon King's Divine Fist was incomparably powerful. The original Tianyang could rely on this fist to kill an ordinary 8th-level origin transformation stage martial artist. Now that Tianyang's heavenly dragon body had reached large success stage, his physical strength had a trace of lightning energy, and this Dragon King's Divine Fist had become even more terrifying. Roar! A dragon's roar resounded as he punched out. An endless amount of pressure exploded, instantly enveloping the entire spiritual medicine house. The dragon's aura was so powerful that some people could not withstand it and directly fell to the ground. Although the others did not fall to the ground, their expressions changed drastically. Sweat poured out like a cow, and they were barely holding on. Just a single wave of pressure had caused them to be in such a sorry state. Moreover, it was not targeted at them. What if it was the fist itself? How powerful would it be? At this moment, Dongfang Xiang also used his life to answer this question for them. Boom! Compared to the Dragon King's Divine Fist, Dongfang Xiang's body was like tofu compared to steel. Dongfang Xiang's charge was no different from a moth flying into a flame. He was digging his own grave. Dongfang Xiang's face twisted for a moment. He opened his mouth and wanted to roar something, but in the next moment, the overbearing power of the Dragon King's divine fist exploded. Boom! There was another loud bang. Dongfang Xiang could no longer open his mouth, because his entire body had turned into a cloud of blood mist. Dongfang Xiang of the Dongfang family was dead. As the initiator, Tianyang only frowned and withdrew his fist. He took out a handkerchief from his interspatial bag and wiped it. There were some bloodstains on the handkerchief. Dongfang Xiang is dead. Tianyang withdrew his fist, and the dragon's aura that was suppressing them naturally dissipated. However, those who were lying on the ground did not dare to stand up. Everyone looked at Tianyang in shock. That was the young master of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Xiang. Tianyang killed him with a single punch. Was he not afraid of the Dongfang family's revenge? In fact, Tianyang was not afraid at all. He had even killed Dongfang Zhua. According to common sense, the Dongfang family should have come long ago. In the end, they did not make a move. Since that was the case, Tianyang might as well kill Dongfang Xiang and add fuel to the fire. Tianyang was almost bored to death as he cultivated peacefully in the academy. Xiaoya, on the other hand, was slightly calmer. Although she was also shocked by Dongfang Xiang's death, she was not too moved, because to her, and to the countless seniors and maids of the spiritual medicine house who had died before her, Dongfang Xiang must die. Carry on, carry on. It's just killing a few people. It's not like I haven't seen it before. Tianyang could not stand the strange gazes around him, and said to the crowd. Hearing this, the crowd hurriedly nodded. They suppressed the shock in their hearts and continued to purchase the pills. The crowd continued to purchase the pills, and for a moment, it was quite peaceful. However, if nothing unexpected happened, after one of them finished his purchase, a storm would be stirred up in the Thunder Sea City of the 19th Lightning Ocean, because the young master of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Xiang, was dead. Tianyang walked in front of Xiaoya. While Xiaoya was trembling in fear, he said, "Does the spiritual medicine house really not have my herbs?" Xiaoya was dumbfounded. Chapter 298. Xiaoya was dumbfounded by Tianyang's question. She thought that Tianyang was similar to Dongfang Xiang and wanted her. Who knew that he would suddenly ask for herbs? Who would remember what happened in the past? Furthermore, he had just killed the young master of the Dongfang family, Dongfang Xiang. In the blink of an eye, he was asking for herbs as if nothing had happened. However, Xiaoya was a professional servant after all. She quickly replied, Sir, I haven't heard of the herbs you mentioned before. Why don't you follow me to the second floor of the spiritual medicine house and ask someone of a higher level?" Xiaoya said. Tianyang nodded. Since this servant did not know, there was no point in asking her. However, Tianyang was still puzzled. The herbs for the Thunder Spirit Pill were indeed a little out of the ordinary. However, it was not to the extent that he did not know any of them. "Let's go then," Tianyang said. Then, he followed the servant Xiaoya up the spiral staircase to the second floor. Seeing this, everyone was shocked. The second floor? Isn't that only the cultivators on the outer court genius roll can go up there? He just asked for a few herbs that he did not know, and he can go up there? I should have asked for it too. Ha. At this moment, a young man at the side laughed coldly. He killed Nyota and Nyo Air in one move, and killed Dongfang Xiang in one move. How could someone like him not be on the outer court genius roll? Are you trying to make me laugh? Soon, Tianyang and Xiaoya walked up to the second floor. The decor of the second floor was similar to the first floor. However, it was more refined and elegant. After all, it was the second floor. Ordinary students could not come up there. At this moment, Xiaoya seemed to have recalled something. Her face was pale as she said, "Sir, I forgot that only the geniuses on the outer court genius roll can come up to the second floor. Let's go down while no one is paying attention." Xiaoya said. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression did not change. He smiled faintly and said, "It's all right." At this moment, someone on the second floor noticed the commotion and walked over. That person was an extremely aged old man. However, his cultivation wasn't weak. He was at the peak of the 8th level of the origin transformation stage. Although such a cultivation was merely outstanding among the geniuses on the outer court's genius rankings that focused on the martial Tao, It was different when compared to the alchemist attire he wore. The old man slowly walked in front of Tianyang and Xiaoye. Seeing this, Xiaoye's face turned even paler. Alchemist Gu, we didn't do it on purpose. The rules on the second floor were just an accident. At this time, the old man suddenly stepped forward, carefully looked at Tianyang's face, and said in shock, You are Tianyang? Tianyang. He was the one who had been in the outer yard for less than half a year, but he was ranked 21st on the outer yard genius list and even defeated Nangong Phone. This name had long been famous in the entire Sky Blue College's outer court. Although the alchemist Gu was an alchemist, he was also a student of Sky Blue College, so he was very familiar with this name. When Xiaoye heard this name, her body trembled as if thunder had struck her ears. She looked at Tianyang in disbelief. This young man was actually the one who defeated Nangong Phone, a senior who had been famous for a long time and obtained the 21st position on the outer yard genius list as the #1 new student. Tianyang? No wonder he could easily kill the Niu brothers and Dongfang Xiang. It turned out that he was so powerful. That's right. Tianyang nodded slightly, then asked curiously, You know me? Of course, I know you. In the history of Sky Blue College, this is the first time a new student has made such a high ranking in such a short time. Even the sword spirit, Zhou Tong, was slightly inferior. It's not an exaggeration to say that you can be considered the #1 new student in the history of the outer court. The alchemist Gu smiled. If it were an ordinary genius, the alchemist Gu would at most treat him calmly. However, he had to pay attention to Tianyang. Although the title of the #1 new student in the history of the outer court was a little intimidating, there was nothing wrong with it when it was given to Tianyang. You're not convinced? Why don't you try to get the 21st position on the outer court genius list in a few months' time? Such a genius was likely to become a mighty figure of the second or third heaven of the Tao Fire State in the future. Naturally, the alchemist Gu had to pay attention to him. You flatter me. In response, Tianyang only smiled. He did not care about the intimidating title. After all, it was useless. Seeing Tianyang's casual attitude, the alchemist Gu was even more surprised. He nodded slightly and praised him in his heart. Not arrogant in victory, not discouraged in defeat. Such a genius is indeed worthy of my respect. Then, why have you come to our spiritual medicine house? The alchemist Gu smiled. At this moment, Xiaoye was completely speechless. She could only watch in shock as Tianyang and the alchemist Gu chatted cheerfully. The alchemist Gu was a level 3 beginner alchemist. His position in Sky Blue College was above average. However, in his conversation with Tianyang, the alchemist Gu was actually in a lower position. This young man was too powerful. Young hero Tianyang is here to buy herbs. However, I don't recognize the herbs that he mentioned, so I can only bring them to the second floor. Xiaoye could only speak now. Hearing this, the alchemist Gu's face showed a hint of anger. How could a maid not recognize the herbs that the customer wanted? However, now was not the time to reprimand Xiaoye. The alchemist Gu asked, Those herbs, elixir flower, thundergrass, Xiaoye said. Every time she said a name, the alchemist Gu's face twitched slightly. His eyes showed a hint of confusion. Who am I? Where am I? Where am I? When Xiaoye finished, the alchemist Gu finally regained his senses. His old face showed a hint of awkwardness. He did not recognize nearly half of these herbs. However, the small part that he understood made a flash of inspiration in his mind. He seemed to have seen it in an ancient book. Then his whole body trembled, and his face was full of shock. You are collecting these herbs. Could it be that you want to refine an ancient pill that has been lost for tens of thousands of years? The Thunder Spirit pill? The alchemist Gu was shocked. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows. An ancient pill that had been lost for tens of thousands of years. This small Thunder Spirit pill was actually damaged by the great destruction of civilization. It is indeed the Thunder Spirit pill. However, the Thunder Spirit pill was only a medium to high-level cultivation pill. There was nothing to hide, so Tianyang said it out loud. Hearing this, the alchemist Gu was even more shocked. A pill that had been lost for generations could actually be refined. Chapter 299. For a moment, even though the ancient alchemist was experienced and knowledgeable, he could not see through Tianyang. He had thought that Tianyang was just a genius with terrifying talent and strong combat strength. Although he wanted to build a good relationship with him, he did not think much of him. Only a genius who grew up could be called a genius. Since ancient times, countless amazing geniuses had died on the path of martial arts. The ancient alchemist had only flattered Tianyang on a whim. But now, Tianyang had casually taken out an elixir recipe that had been lost for tens of thousands of years. This immediately stunned the ancient alchemist. Extraordinary talent, strong combat strength, a commendable temperament, and a lost elixir recipe? Who exactly was Tianyang? Speaking of which, you don't even know it. Don't tell me that the spiritual medicine house doesn't have it? Tianyang was puzzled. If that was the case, it would be a little difficult. Cultivation was a race against time. Although the Thunder Spiritual Elixir would be of great help to Tianyang's cultivation, if he went out for the Thunder Spiritual Elixir and lost his cultivation time, it would mean that he could not attend to one thing and lose another. Don't worry. As long as it's from a firmament territory, Sky Blue College has it. The Spiritual Medicine House will definitely have it too. Hearing the question of the herbs, the ancient alchemist immediately guaranteed and said solemnly. Hearing this, Tianyang could not help but feel a little surprised. Sky Blue College was really extraordinary to be able to make such a bold claim. However, although the elixir spiritual flower and the thundergrass were rare, they were not rare. They were just relatively rare, so there should not be a problem. Then, the ancient alchemist waved his hand and called a waiter over. He asked him to go to the warehouse to find the herbs that Tianyang needed. Soon, all the herbs that Tianyang needed were gathered. Although there are some problems with the quality, it's not a big deal. Not bad. Looking at the two sets of herbs in his hands, Tianyang nodded with satisfaction and asked, "How many spirit stones for these herbs?" For Origin Transformation Realm cultivators, gold coins had been completely replaced by spirit stones. After all, gold coins were precious metals. Although they were precious to mortals, they didn't have much meaning to cultivators. Although most of Tianyang's spirit stones were used for cultivation, it was more than enough to buy medicinal herbs with hundreds of thousands of spirit stones. You don't have to pay. Hearing this, Alchemist Gu waved his hand and said loudly, "Ah!" When they heard this, the attendant who brought the medicinal herbs over and Xiaoya who stood at the side were instantly dumbfounded. Even though the value of these medicinal herbs wasn't high, but two sets were at least a few tens of thousands of spirit stones. To the spirit medicine house, this was a considerable amount of wealth. How could an ancient alchemist give it away just like that? Even Tianyang was surprised. Why? One wouldn't wake up early if there were no benefits. He hadn't known this old man for long. In terms of friendship, it was naturally impossible for him to give it to him for free. This ancient alchemist must have some ulterior motive. I just hope that, when young friend Tianyang is refining the Thunder Spirit pill, you can let me observe for a while. The ancient alchemist rubbed his hands and said. Hearing this, Xiaoye and the attendant who were at the side were instantly stunned. Observe? An ancient alchemist who had a high status in Sky Blue College actually used the word observe when he wanted to observe Tianyang refining pills? This was something that was said to a powerful cultivator. Could it be that Tianyang's alchemy skills had already surpassed that of an ancient alchemist? But Tianyang was a little too young. In Xiaoye's impression, all alchemists were white-haired old men with fluttering beards. At the very least, they were middle-aged men who wore a beard and didn't smile. However, Tianyang's face was at most 16 years old. I see. Hearing this, Tianyang pondered for a moment, then nodded and agreed. Okay, but don't spread it. Even if an ordinary person saw his alchemy skills 10 or 100 times, as long as their realm was not high enough, they wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Tianyang wasn't afraid that this old man would steal his alchemy skills. The reason why he didn't want to spread it was because he didn't want his skills to become widely known. Of course, the ancient alchemist said straightforwardly. Then he said, "Then let's go to the alchemy room to refine pills." Tianyang nodded and followed the ancient alchemist into the alchemy room. Xiaoya and Xiaoya were left at a loss. In the alchemy room, Tianyang sensed the abundant fire attribute aura and the quiet atmosphere around him and nodded slightly. This alchemy room was well decorated. As soon as the space bag moved, the alchemy cauldron Tianyang bought in the small town at the foot of the fierce beast mountain range appeared in front of Tianyang. Seeing this alchemy cauldron, the ancient alchemist's face changed. This alchemy cauldron was too lousy. Although alchemy cauldrons were not specifically divided into grades, there were still high and low grades. For example, the alchemy cauldron used by the ancient alchemist was extremely resistant to heat and impact. Even if the pills exploded, there was no fear of the cauldron exploding. Tianyang's alchemy cauldron was really a little weak and pitiful. Even the metal used to forge it was probably just ordinary cold iron. Although such an alchemy cauldron was not useless, it was definitely not something that a third-grade alchemist should use. Could it be that this kid is just pretending? Well, his talent in martial arts is so strong, it's impossible for him to be strong in alchemy. Seeing this lousy alchemy cauldron, the ancient alchemist's previous reverence turned into a little contempt. At this time, Tianyang was already immersed in alchemy and didn't pay attention to the ancient alchemist at all. Phew! Tianyang lightly exhaled, then both his hands released the spirit annihilation flame at the same time, burning under the alchemy cauldron. Seeing the spirit annihilation flame, the ancient alchemist was shocked. Spirit fire? Hearing this, Tianyang glanced at the ancient alchemist. Yes. Hearing this, the ancient alchemist was instantly stunned. A new student at the peak of the 4th level of the origin transformation stage actually possessed a spirit fire. Moreover, looking at its aura, it seemed to be a type of spirit fire that wasn't weak. Coupled with the Thunder Spirit Pills formula that Tianyang took out, the ancient alchemist started to suspect that Tianyang might be the successor of some great power. However, although the spirit fire is helpful in alchemy, it's extremely difficult to control it. If something goes wrong, the spirit fire will go berserk and become a disaster. The ancient alchemist consoled himself. It was truly hard for him to believe that Tianyang, a youth that was at most 16 years old, could have an alchemy skill that was even stronger than his. In the next moment, the ancient alchemist saw the spirit annihilation flame that was docile like a kitten in Tianyang's hands, obediently completing the work of heating the cauldron. The ancient alchemist. Your mother. That's a spirit fire. Amongst the extraordinary items of heaven and earth, the most unruly spirit fire. Looking at the ruthless appearance of this spirit fire when it first came out, it was surely the most unruly among the unruly. In the end, it became even more obedient than a cat in the next second. Big brother, you're a spirit fire, not firewood. At this moment, Tianyang had already picked up the medicinal herbs and prepared to start refining the pill. Seeing this scene, the ancient alchemist slightly heaved a sigh of relief. Heating the cauldron was only the basic work. The true test of the alchemy Tao was still alchemy. In the next moment, Tianyang was expressionless as he waved his hand and threw the 2 sets of medicinal herbs into the cauldron at the same time. Chapter 300 F*CK. The ancient alchemist roared, throwing 2 sets of herbs into the cauldron at once. Even a lunatic wouldn't do that. You. The ancient alchemist was so angry that he stood up. You're blaspheming the art of alchemy. The ancient alchemist roared. Tianyang was also controlling the spiritual fire of destruction to refine the pill. Then, he looked at the ancient alchemist in confusion. What the hell? What blasphemy? Wasn't he refining pills normally? Damn it! Seeing Tianyang's confused look, the ancient alchemist was even more furious. You threw all the herbs in at once. Isn't that self-destruction? You don't even try, and you're so arrogant. Such a person. I've seen too many. My spiritual medicine house doesn't welcome you. The ancient alchemist roared. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression became even more confused. His left and right hands shook slightly at the same time, and he continued to extract the herbs while multitasking. Which eye of yours saw me destroying the herbs? You threw them all in at once. How is it possible that the herbs aren't destroyed? The ancient alchemist roared. Hearing this, Tianyong was speechless. It's fine if you don't use your brain to speak, but you don't use your eyes to speak? Hearing this, the ancient alchemist was stunned. Then, he took a closer look and was immediately shocked, speechless. Suddenly, under the rhythm of Tianyong's fingers, the spiritual fire of destruction rose and fell in an extremely orderly manner. The temperature in the cauldron was also like Tianyong's fingers. It was as if he wanted it to be high and low, and it was as if he wanted it to be low. Under this miraculous technique, the extremely stubborn medicinal ingredients turned into drops of pure liquid and floated to the side, waiting for the final fusion into a pill. This technique not only required a familiar control of the flame, but also a thorough understanding of the herbs. If there was a mistake, even if it was just 0.1 degrees higher, it would destroy all the herbs in the cauldron. How is this possible? The ancient alchemist said in horror. According to common sense, after throwing all the herbs in, shouldn't they be destroyed immediately? Why was Tianyong able to refine the herbs so efficiently? Nothing is impossible. If you want to watch, then watch quietly. If you make a fuss again, I'll chase you away. Tianyong glanced at the ancient alchemist and continued to refine pills. After being reprimanded, the ancient alchemist calmed down and stared at Tianyong's alchemy process. This technique was too powerful. Even his fourth-grade alchemist master might not be able to achieve this level of proficiency. Could it be that this young man was even stronger than a fourth-grade alchemist? Thinking of this, the ancient alchemist trembled and shook his head vigorously. How could this be? A 15 or 16-year-old boy, even if he started refining pills in his mother's womb, it was impossible for him to do this. Alchemy required countless accumulations in order to improve. Tianyong was so young. How could he have such deep accumulations? However, before the ancient alchemist could question for long in his heart, the next scene that made him dumbfounded appeared. The pitch-black spirit annihilation fire actually turned into 9 flying fire dragons, constantly circling in the cauldron. The blazing temperature spread, and the fire dragons burned fiercely. The herbs in the cauldron were also refined at an even faster speed than before. Piles of residue were thrown out by Tianyong. The ancient alchemist took a closer look. These residues were really residues. There was not even a little bit of medicinal residue. In other words, Tianyong's medicinal herbs were refined without any wastage. Could this be? The ancient alchemist opened his mouth wide. Looking at the circling fire dragons, he thought of an alchemy legend. 10,000 years ago, the #1 alchemist, the Tianji Sword Emperor, created the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. The 9 dragon spinning wheel was similar to the 9 fire dragons that appeared in front of him, spiraling and dancing in the air like a spinning wheel. Moreover, this amazing medicinal herb refinement method was no different from the legendary 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. The 9 fire dragons spun and soared, flying freely in the cauldron. Under Tianyong's exquisite control, the medicinal herbs were also completely extracted in just a few minutes. Seeing this amazing effect, the ancient alchemist was even more certain that this technique was undoubtedly the Tianji Sword Emperor's 9 dragons rotating wheel technique. Thinking that the 9 dragons rotating wheel technique was created after the Tianji Sword Emperor obtained the spirit fire, the ancient alchemist was completely convinced. Done. Looking at the 2 distinct sets of medicinal herb essences in the cauldron, Tianyong's lips curled up slightly, and he chuckled lightly. Seeing this, the ancient alchemist was once again dumbfounded. Not only was he so efficient in refining the herbs, he was even so proficient in dividing the medicinal herb essences. Could it be that he was the reincarnation of the Tianji Sword Emperor? The ancient alchemist did not know that his ridicule was the truth of the matter. Next, it's time to condense the pill. Tianyong had forgotten that there was an old man watching from the side. After muttering to himself, the flames rose again. Seeing this, the ancient alchemist immediately raised his thoughts. The legendary 9 Dragons' rotating wheel technique's strongest point was condensing the pill. Condensing the pill was the most difficult part of refining pills. When extracting medicinal herbs, as long as one's soul strength was strong enough and they were careful, there would basically be no mistakes. Of course, there were also some medicinal herbs that were extremely stubborn. It was not uncommon for them to resist and destroy the entire cauldron of medicinal herbs. However, compared to condensing the pill, these were simply child's play. Condensing the pill, the fusion of countless medicinal herb essences, seemed very simple. However, there would always be conflicts between medicinal herb essences. If something went wrong, the cauldron would explode. If they were forcefully fused together, the explosion would be considered a light punishment. It was because of this that there were so few people who could enter the field of alchemy, and the status of alchemists was so revered. The legendary 9 Dragons' rotating wheel technique, 9 dragons dancing, in just a few breaths, can condense the pill. I wonder if Tianyang can do this. The ancient alchemist opened his eyes wide, not daring to miss any details. At this moment, Tianyang also controlled the flames and used the 9 Dragons' rotating wheel technique again. The 9 Dragons wrapped the medicinal herbs and suddenly rushed out of the cauldron. 9 proud black fire dragons, soaring in the air. The essence of the medicinal herbs seemed to have disappeared as they fused together with ease. The ancient alchemist was clear that this was not because the medicinal herb essences had been removed. Instead, it was because Tianyang's alchemy realm had reached a terrifying level. The medicinal herb conflicts that caused countless people to worry until their hair turned white in front of him were like child's play. With the flames rising, it could be easily resolved. The next moment, 9 dragons dancing, 10,000 herbs fusing. 2 perfectly round pills were formed at this moment, and a refreshing pill aroma was slowly emitted from them. As for the ancient alchemist, he was shocked to see that on the 2 Thunder Spirit pills. Chapter 301. 2 perfectly round pills slowly floated in the center of the 9 dancing fire dragons. A refreshing pill fragrance was released. Within it, there was a hint of thunder aura. This made the alchemist who had been stationed in the Thunder Sea all year round feel very familiar. If there was no accident, this was the level 3 pill that had been lost for 10,000 years, the Thunder Spirit pill. However, this Thunder Spirit pill seemed to have something extra. The alchemist took a closer look. With his eyesight, he immediately discovered what was different about this pill. In the next moment, he was so shocked that he was speechless. On top of the Thunder Spirit pill, there were circles of pill markings. Are those pill markings? The alchemist trembled as he said, "Pill markings, that was something that represented the highest quality pill. Some pills below level 2 were unable to have pill markings. Even if it was level 2 or level 3 pills, to refine pill markings was as difficult as ascending to the heavens, because this meant that during the refining process, every step, every minute, and even every second had to be done perfectly. For an alchemist, to be able to refine pill markings was definitely the glory of a lifetime. Even that pill with pill markings was not willing to use it. Instead, he placed it in his room and worshipped it. What made the alchemist shocked was that the person who refined the pill markings was only a 15 or 16-year-old youth. That's right. Seeing the alchemist's shocked expression, Tianyang nodded his head. He understood why the alchemist was so shocked. However, understanding was one thing, and understanding was another. To Tianyang, who had refined countless pills with pill markings, just 2 Thunder Spirit pills with pill markings were not enough to enter his eyes. Hearing Tianyang admit it, the alchemist's heart suddenly shrank. His throat fell dry as he stared at the Thunder Spirit pill with pill markings. Little friend Tianyang. No, Lord Tianyang, can you part with your treasure and sell this Thunder Spirit pill to me? Don't worry, I will definitely give you a fair price. 1 million low-grade spirit stones? Or 2 million? As long as it's within my Gu Zhao's tolerance, I can definitely do it. The ancient alchemist excitedly said. This was a Dan with pill veins. Although it was not refined by him, if he had one, it would be a great honor. Only now did Tianyang know that this old man who liked to be startled was called Gu Xiao. However, Tianyang's face was still as calm as before, making Gu Xiao unable to see through him. These were Dan veins. This young man was actually so calm. It seemed like this young man's background was absolutely shocking. Tianyang didn't know that Gu Xiao had taken his calm demeanor as the demeanor of an expert and had even imagined a deep background for him. At this moment, he slightly furrowed his eyebrows and asked, "Do you have any more medicinal ingredients for the Thunder Spirit pill?" "I don't need too much. 3 sets. 3 sets of Thunder Spirit pill ingredients in exchange for a top-grade Thunder Spirit pill with pill veins," Tianyang said. Naturally, he didn't have the time to collect herbs himself. Moreover, in this Thunder Sea, only the spiritual medicine house had herbs. If Tianyang wanted to buy herbs, he could only do so here. Moreover, Tianyang didn't ask for too much. Although the herbs for the Thunder Spirit pill were rare, they weren't rare to the point of being rare. Each set of herbs was at most a few tens of thousands of low-grade spiritual stones. 3 sets of herbs, at most, would be 200,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Compared to Gu Zhao's 1 or 2 million low-grade spiritual stones, it was much more affordable. Of course, this was also because Tianyang didn't care about the pill veins at all. As long as he had the herbs, he could refine a bunch in minutes. Why would he care? 1 for 3. Who wouldn't do such a thing? Hearing this, Gu Xiao was naturally ecstatic. 1 for 3 is too cheap. Naturally, 1 for 5, 1 for 7, 1 for 10. "Waiter, come here," Gu Xiao shouted. Soon after, the waiter who was waiting outside heard the order and immediately rushed in. "What orders does the ancient alchemist have?" In the next moment, the waiter saw the top-grade Thunder Spirit pill floating in Tianyang's hand and was dumbfounded. It had only been a few minutes, and he had already refined the pill. Did he have to be so abnormal? Gu Xiao was so excited that he didn't care about the waiter's expression. Instead, he hurriedly said, "How many more herbs for the Thunder Spirit pill are there in the spiritual medicine house's warehouse?" "Take as many as you have. Bring them all here." Hearing this, the waiter was stunned. Then, he revealed a troubled expression. "This? Why? Is there a problem?" Gu Xiao frowned and asked. Hearing this, the waiter could only sigh and say, "It's not that I don't want to, but in the warehouse there are no more herbs for the Thunder Spirit pill. These herbs are extremely rare. There aren't many alchemists who need these herbs. In the Thunder Sea city of the Void Thunder Hall's top 20 lightning seas, only our 19th lightning sea has them. Because no one wants them, there are only 2 sets in the warehouse. Previously, I brought all of them here." The waiter was troubled. Hearing this, Gu Xiao felt as if he was struck by lightning. His entire person became dejected. "Once there was a top-grade pill with pill veins in front of me, but I didn't cherish it. So it's like this." Without waiting for Gu Zhao's inner drama to start, Tianyang frowned slightly. "Then, I'll take my leave first." Hearing this, Gu Xiao immediately recovered and hurriedly shouted, "Lord Tianyang, please don't leave first." Hearing this, Tianyang stopped and turned around. As for the waiter, he was so shocked that he was charred on the outside and tender on the inside. The respected ancient alchemist actually called this young man, "Lord." "What? If you don't have the herbs, I won't sell it. This Thunder Spirit pill is useful to me, and I don't lack spirit stones," Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, the ancient alchemist's face revealed a bitter expression. Perhaps this was fate. If it's fated, it will be there. If it's not fated, don't force it. However, Gu Xiao immediately pulled himself together. He took out a luxurious token from his space bag and passed it to Tianyang. "This is our Spirit Medicine House's Platinum VIP token. With this token, our Spirit Medicine House will provide you with priority in all of our supplies. If you buy anything, you can even get a 40% discount. Moreover, our Spirit Medicine House doesn't only exist in the Void Thunder Hall. We also have branches in Sky Blue College, Night Dome City, and other big cities. And Sky Blue College's branch is the headquarters. There are even more herbs in the headquarters. Lord Tianyang, you'll definitely be able to find the herbs you need," Gu Xiao said sincerely. Hearing this, Tianyong didn't reject and accepted it. This was their good intentions, and it wouldn't be appropriate to reject it. However, Tianyong thought about it and said, train your fire control skills. When you extract the essence of the herbs, be patient and don't make any mistakes. Finally, when you condense the pill, pay attention to the balance of the energy and fluctuations between the herbs. You'll also have a chance to refine the pill veins. Tianyong said indifferently, then went downstairs. Hearing this, Gu Zhao's whole body trembled, as if he was suddenly enlightened. He immediately understood. What Tianyong said happened to be what he was lacking. Then, Gu Zhao bowed deeply to Tianyong's back as he left. This was a disciple's salute to his teacher. The waiter beside him was so shocked that he couldn't speak. At this moment, Tianyong smiled and spoke leisurely. Your spirit medicine house is made. Xiao Yu has good service. I'm very satisfied. Hearing this, Gu Zhao was stunned. Then, he immediately stood up and said to the waiter beside him, pass down my order. That Xiao Yu is no longer a maid. She's one of the managers of the spirit medicine house. Chapter 302. After leaving the spiritual medicine house, Tianyong did not continue to stay in the Thunder Sea City. According to Xiao Yu and the others, the Thunder Sea City did not only have the Thunder Sea in the 19th layer. Other than the first 10 layers, almost every layer had the Thunder Sea. Of course, after reaching a certain height, the Thunder Sea City had no meaning to exist. After all, there were only a few people who could reach that height. Those people were scattered in the vast space of the Thunder Sea, and it was almost impossible to meet them. There were few people, and they did not gather together. Naturally, there was no foundation to form city. Naturally, the Thunder Sea City no longer existed. 2 Thunder Spirit pills can probably be used for 20 to 30 layers of the Thunder Sea. After reaching the 25th layer, I will find a Thunder Sea City to buy the herbs. With me as the starting point, the herbs for the Thunder Spirit pill should have already been known by them. The various big Thunder Sea cities will definitely have the herbs for the Thunder Spirit pill. However, if they want to use the herbs to deduce the pill formula, they are thinking too much. Tianyong said with a smile. He wasn't afraid that the lightning spiritual pill's formula would be leaked. After all, although the lightning spiritual pill's formula wasn't complicated, it was still one of the top-tier third-grade elixirs. The extraction coefficient of the various herbs, the order of fusion, and the temperature of the flame, even the temperature of the cauldron and the surrounding spiritual qi had to be taken into consideration. If Tianyong threw in the herbs one by one, it would be fine. However, he used the 9 Dragons rotating wheel technique to refine the pill. With such a top-grade alchemy technique, not to mention a 3rd-grade alchemist, even a 4th-grade alchemist or a 5th-grade alchemist would not be able to see anything from it. Then, let's go and try the effects of the Thunder Spirit pill. It has been many years. Tianyong laughed. His face showed that he was reminiscing about the past. He arrived outside the Thunder Sea City and soared into the sky, flying towards the other side of the Thunder Sea. Tianyong arrived above the Thunder Sea. Under the thunder clouds, he stopped, toying with the Thunder spiritual pill in his hand, which had a lightning-like pattern on it. He chuckled and swallowed it. When the Thunder Spirit pill entered Tianyong's mouth, it did not dissolve like other pills, but instead, it suddenly exploded. It was as if a small lightning bomb had exploded in Tianyong's mouth. The Thunder Spirit pill directly turned into a small lightning bolt and directly drilled into Tianyong's body. Tianyong was not surprised at all. He had eaten a lot of Thunder Spirit pills, so he naturally knew how different this Thunder Spirit pill was. Refined. Tianyong let out a low roar as he circulated his true essence. In the next moment, the lightning formed by the Thunder spiritual pill was immediately wrapped up by his true essence. Not only was the heavenly origin true essence abundant, but it also had a strong refining effect on different types of energy. When he was at the first level of the divine desolate heaven spirit technique, Tianyong had successfully used the power of the divine desolate heaven spirit technique to refine the dragon Qi in the dragon pearl that Ao Ling had given him. And now, the divine desolate heaven spirit art had reached the 3rd heavenly layer. His ability to refine foreign energy had become even stronger. Sizzle, 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 the lightning constantly struggled. However, in front of Tianyang's enormous true essence, it was like a little lamb, unable to resist at all. Not long later, Tianyang successfully captured it and turned it into his own strength, merging it into his body. In the next moment, Tianyang felt that everything around him had changed. The hidden lightning energy in his body was stimulated and rushed out of his body without leaving anything behind. Following that, with the circulation of the divine desolate heaven spirit technique, it was constantly refined and strengthened Tianyang's physical strength. The heavenly dragon's body had reached its peak, but that did not mean that Tianyang's physical strength could not improve. Furthermore, the void lightning energy in the heavenly dragon core was also constantly absorbing the void lightning energy, strengthening Tianyang's thunder Tao cultivation. As for Tianyang himself, he felt that the world around him had changed. The air seemed to contain countless lightning attributed heaven and earth spirit chi, and the thunderclouds in the sky contained the void lightning energy that was similar to his heavenly dragon core. It was as if with just a thought from Tianyang, countless lightning attributed heaven and earth spirit chi would surge into his body. This was the effect of the thunder spirit pill. It stimulated the hidden lightning energy in the body and then strengthened the user's ability to comprehend the thunder Tao. Today, Tianyang had successfully displayed both of these abilities. Although I haven't seen much of the void lightning energy in my previous life, its power is extremely strong. Now that there's such a good opportunity, how can I give it up? The corners of Tianyang's mouth curled up. In the next moment, he used the void stepping secret technique and soared into the sky, landing in the thunderclouds. Boom! The thunderclouds roared as streaks of golden lightning exploded out, bombarding Tianyang's body. However, Tianyang was not afraid. He laughed loudly and rushed towards the source of the thunderclouds. The time given to him was only a few hundred streaks of lightning. However, he wanted to devour the core of the thunderclouds, the void lightning energy. Tianyang had a premonition that if he devoured the void lightning energy, the upper earth tier Thunder God Sword might become a peerless earth tier Thunder God Sword. The Thunder God Sword was known as the Thunder God. Naturally, it was not just an earth tier martial skill. However, Tianyang had obtained an incomplete Thunder God Sword, which was only an upper earth tier martial skill. However, if he devoured the void lightning energy, with the strength of the void lightning energy, the Thunder God Sword might be restored to a peerless earth tier martial skill. After all, the void lightning energy was one of the most powerful Thunder Tao energies in this world. Got it. Tianyang's body was bombarded by countless streaks of lightning, but he was not afraid at all. With a burst of terrifying speed, he instantly arrived at the core of the thunderclouds, where the void lightning was. Tianyang smiled slightly. In the next moment, his hands formed seals and executed the devouring heaven seal. Boom! A terrifying black vortex was released in the sky. The entire thundercloud seemed to be driven by the black vortex, and the boundless thunder, Tao energy within it was rapidly absorbed. The void lightning was no exception. It was the first one to enter the black vortex, as expected of one of the most powerful thunder Tao energies. It is indeed terrifying. The void lightning rampaged in the black vortex, causing Tianyang's breath to become unstable. However, Tianyang's eyes revealed a glimmer of light. The stronger it struggled, the greater the boost it would bring to him after refining the void lightning energy. Devour. Tianyang formed seals again, and mysterious runes were added to the black vortex. The black vortex also completely exploded. Although the void lightning was powerful, it was still a lamb waiting to be slaughtered in Tianyang's hands. Now, the butcher's knife had fallen. Boom! The last explosion was heard, and the void lightning was completely refined, turning into the purest void lightning energy, which was injected into Tianlong's dragon elixir. Tianyang immediately closed his eyes, sat cross-legged in the void, and entered a state of cultivation. In a short while, boom! A loud explosion was heard, and the surrounding lightning dissipated. A sea of lightning surged within a 10-mile radius. Chapter 303. Fifth level of the origin transformation stage. 4 heavenly yuan, true yuan. Every breakthrough required one to condense a drop of heavenly yuan, true yuan. However, it was extremely difficult to condense a drop of heavenly yuan, true yuan. However, once a breakthrough was made, one's combat strength would definitely skyrocket. Previously, when Tianyang was at the peak of the 4th level of the origin transformation stage, he could easily deal with Nangong Foam, who was at the 9th level of the origin transformation stage. Now that he was at the 5th level of the origin transformation stage, he would definitely be able to unleash an even more terrifying power as long as he adapted slightly. Moreover, Tianyang's physical strength was the area where Tianyang had improved the most. Now, Tianyang. It would not be an exaggeration to say that his fists could shatter mountains and his legs could break Jianghe. 5th level of the origin transformation stage. This speed is not considered slow. Tianyang chuckled. He had spent an entire month cultivating from the 3rd level of the origin transformation stage to the peak of the 4th level of the origin transformation stage. However, it had only taken him 2 weeks to go from the peak of the 4th level of the origin transformation stage to the 5th level of the origin transformation stage. Although it could be said that the battle had stimulated one's potential, the importance of the Void Thunder Hall was also indispensable. This was the attraction of the academy. As an academy, there would definitely be a few cultivation treasures. Sky Blue College, which was famous throughout the Firmament territory, was naturally no exception. Of course, the academy would not lose out. The academy would nurture its students, and the students would repay the academy. This was a win-win situation. Then, next, let's try to break through to the next level. Tianyang laughed. Then, he executed the Void Step secret technique and continued to provoke another thundercloud. Subsequently, Tianyang completed the task of the 19th thundercloud and stepped into the 20th thundercloud. At the 20th layer, Heavenly Sun didn't spend much time. He didn't go to Thunder Sea City either. Instead, he found a thundercloud on the spot and went straight to the root of the problem. He seized the power of the void lightning and continued to use the lightning to temper his body. To ordinary people, the 20 lightning seas were like purgatory, but in front of the Heavenly Suns, they were easily completed. The 21st thundercloud. The 21st thundercloud was a watershed. It was the watershed that separated the ordinary geniuses from the true geniuses. Although it was difficult to reach the 20th level of the lightning sea, some people who were good at cultivating the way of lightning could still reach it. Most of them had the strength of the outer yard genius ranking, but they were all ranked at the bottom. Even though there were only 100 people on the outer domain genius ranking, the last 10 or so names were constantly changing. Those who possessed such strength would definitely be ranked at least 2,000. Of course, once they reached the top, it would not be so easy to shake them. One of the most important indicators was the 21st layer of the Lightning Sea. I heard that the 21st Lightning Sea has undergone another great change. The power of the lightning is even more terrifying. The lightning attribute spiritual chi of heaven and earth is so dense that small lightning bolts appear from time to time. Tianyang stood in midair, looking at the vast sea of lightning as he spoke in a low voice. Such lightning should be able to speed up the improvement of my physical strength. After putting away the low-grade, Earth-tier martial skill that he obtained after clearing the 20th level into his spatial bag, Tianyang soared into the sky and arrived in the middle of the thunderclouds. Boom, boom, boom. The thunderclouds were still extremely restless. With Tianyang's charge, they went completely berserk. Endless lightning bolts poured down on Tianyang. However, Tianyang was not afraid. The Heavenly Dragon's Dragon Core released an endless amount of dragon power, causing Tianyang's physical strength to become the strongest. Boom! A blood-red lightning bolt struck Tianyang's body, but it was dissolved by the surging dragon power. When Tianyang saw this, he was slightly surprised. No wonder the 21st level is called a watershed. This blood-red lightning is at least 5 times stronger than the golden lightning. No wonder people like Nangong Feng could only barely pass the 21st level and fall on the 22nd level. Tianyong muttered to himself. However, facing the endless blood-red lightning, Tianyong still smiled proudly. Go against the flow. To the peak of the heavenly dragon body, the blood-red lightning was still no. Enough. Look, going against the flow of the blood-red lightning, Tianyong was not afraid at all. Once again, he exploded with a terrifying speed and arrived at the core of the thunderclouds. Looking at the restless, pitch-black void lightning, Tianyong grinned. This void lightning was much stronger than the 20th level. If I devour this void lightning, then my lightning power will definitely increase by leaps and bounds. It will also be easier for me to cultivate lightning Dao martial skills like the Thunder God Sword. Tianyong chuckled. Then, he used the Devouring Heaven Seal again and began to devour the lightning bolts. A heaven-class martial skill was extremely powerful. Now that Tianyong had a great breakthrough in his cultivation and physical strength, even though the void lightning was much stronger, it still could not escape from Tianyong's palm. After more than 15 minutes, Tianyong successfully refined it. He pulled out the killing sword and activated the Thunder God Sword. With a sudden slash, he even destroyed the entire thunderclouds. This power made Tianyong secretly click his tongue. Even some Earth-class martial skills were not as good as the Thunder God Sword. Then, Tianyong continued to break through. When he reached the 24th level, he took another Thunder spiritual pill, and his lightning Dao improved greatly. Now, other than the Sword Dao, Alchemy Dao, and Array Dao, Tianyong's strongest Dao was the Lightning Dao. If there was a Thunder Pagoda that was as difficult as the Sword Pagoda, Tianyong's Lightning Dao cultivation would have reached the level of the third test of the 5th level. Just the Lightning Dao alone could suppress countless geniuses in Night Dome City. When he reached the 25th level, Tianyong went to the Spiritual Medicine House again. With the Platinum VIP token, he bought 25 sets of ingredients for the Thunder Spiritual Pill at a very reasonable price. Tianyong did not waste any time. He rented an alchemy room in the Spiritual Medicine House and used the 9 Dragons rotating will technique again. Within 2 hours, he completed the refinement of 25 Thunder Spiritual Pills. This caused the members of the Spiritual Medicine House to be shocked once again. Next, Tianyong madly broke through all the way, ceaselessly strengthening his lightning Dao strength and devouring the energy of lightning in the sky to break through the layers of barriers. The Thunder Spiritual Pills were completely consumed in this frenzied breakthrough. In the end, Tianyong had unknowingly surpassed the current number 1 on the Outer Court Genius rankings, the 61st level Thunder Sea. He arrived at the 68th level Thunder Sea. During the process of breaking through, Tianyong did not slack off on his Sword Dao cultivation. When his Lightning Dao cultivation reached a bottleneck, Tianyong switched to cultivating the Sword Dao and used the sword in his hand to slash apart the endless lightning. In this kind of high-intensity battle, Tianyong's Sword Dao cultivation also advanced by leaps and bounds. If he were to challenge the Sword Pagoda now, he might have already reached the 7th level. During this month, Tianyong fought ceaselessly and accumulated strength, causing his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. He broke through again and reached the peak of the 6th level of the Origin Transformation stage. Tianyong benefited greatly from the trip to the Void Lightning Hall. The 64th level Thunder Sea. If I use all my trump cards, I might be able to pass. Tianyong stood in midair and looked at the Thunder Sea where a bolt of lightning would automatically descend every second as he spoke in a low voice. There was almost no one in this Thunder Sea. The person he met earlier was actually an inner court disciple at the 1st level of the Dao Fire Realm. However, unlike Tianyong, who was at ease, that inner court disciple's entire body was charred black from being struck by lightning. He didn't even greet Tianyong when he saw him. However, my lightning Dao has already reached a limit. What I need is no longer accumulation, but comprehension. Tianyong said indifferently and stood with his hands behind his back. His powerful lightning Dao cultivation caused the lightning to automatically shatter before it could even get close to him. Then, let's stop here. It's time to leave. Tianyang smiled faintly and then moved the student token in his hand. A spatial crack that led to the outside world appeared in front of Tianyang. Chapter 304. Sky Blue College, Void Lightning Hall. With a flash of light, a handsome figure walked out of the portal. It was none other than the only outer court disciple who walked out of the 64th level of the Lightning Sea, Tianyang. This 1 month is almost comparable to half a year of bitter cultivation. Tianyang muttered to himself as he looked at his palm and felt the surging strength in his body. In this 1 month, he had spent in the Lightning Sea and faced endless lightning every day, which made him slightly exhausted. However, he had to pay the price for it. Currently, Tianyang's lightning Dao strength was already comparable to the sword Dao cultivation of the geniuses who passed the 3rd test on the 5th level of the Sword Pagoda. If he went back to cultivate and digest it, he would absolutely be able to defeat the sword Dao geniuses who stepped into the 6th level. It's a pity that there isn't a Thunder Pagoda here. Otherwise, I would be able to test it. Tianyang smiled, then strode out and entered the crowd. The Void Lightning Hall was still as lively as it was a month ago, and there were no changes because of Tianyang's departure. In this 1 month, the Outer Court Genius ranking was also very peaceful. After all, this ranking wasn't that easy to change. After walking out of the Void Lightning Hall, Tianyang executed the Dragon Suppression Step and returned to his courtyard with extreme speed. It was definitely unrealistic to meet in the Void Lightning Hall, so it was best to wait in his own home. Just after Tianyang left, on the Outer Court Thunder Sea ranking at the Void Lightning Hall, the first name of the Outer Court that had always occupied the first place suddenly trembled, and in the next moment, a new name directly replaced it. First, Tianyang, 6th level of the Origin Transformation Stage, passed the 64th level of the Lightning Sea. Second, Zhao Shanhe, Half-Step Dao Fire Stage, past the 61st level of the Lightning Sea. Third, the change of the Outer Court Thunder Sea ranking instantly attracted the attention of countless people, and in the next moment, countless people noticed the new name at the top. Tianyang? Who is that? He's actually so powerful. He even crushed the first place of the Outer Court. The 64th Lightning Sea. So terrifying, so terrifying. I'm afraid only one lightning bolt from there would be enough to turn me into ashes. Everyone was shocked when they saw Tianyang's name. This fellow is actually only at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation Stage. This Tianyang looks a little familiar. Isn't he the freshman who suddenly rose to power a month ago? Finally, someone remembered who the owner of this name was. Who was he? When they heard this name, everyone suddenly recalled the number 1 amongst the new students that shook the entire Outer Court a month ago. He's only at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation Stage, yet he managed to defeat Zhao Shanhe, who was ranked 1st in the Outer Court Genius ranking. Terrifying. Some people were shocked. This Void Lightning Hall was not like a Sword Pagoda or Saber Pagoda. What this Void Lightning Hall tested was one's strength. Of course, if it was someone who cultivated lightning attributed Jin Yuan, they might have an advantage, but this advantage would not be too great. Thus, in the Void Lightning Hall's test, cultivation was a great weapon. Wanting to crush someone with a higher cultivation with a lower cultivation was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Whereas Tianyang, who was only at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation Stage and was able to defeat the entire Outer Court, was simply one of a kind. When they thought up to here, the entire Void Lightning Hall went silent. They were terrified by Tianyang's terror. Even the Inner Court disciples were incomparably astonished. This result was even stronger than theirs. Of course, there were also many people who were unconvinced. No matter how strong he is, he's only an Outer Court disciple. Only when he enters the Inner Court will he have a chance to compete with us. Right now, he's only an ant. A person spoke arrogantly. Everyone was enraged when they heard this. However, when they saw the appearance of that person, their anger was instantly extinguished. That person was a genius of the Inner Court, Ao Tian. Not only did he have a cultivation at the middle stage of the 1st level of the Dao Fire Stage, he even attained the 71st level of the Lightning Sea in the Void Lightning Hall. These outer court disciples completely couldn't afford to offend such a person. As for Ao Tian, after seeing that everyone was subdued by him, he sneered and stepped into the teleportation gate. Only after Ao Tian left did someone speak out indignantly. When Ao Tian was at the 6th level of the origin transformation stage, he only attained the 18th level of the lightning sea. If it wasn't for his high cultivation, how could he possibly be stronger than Tianyang? Lower your voice. That's an inner court disciple. At the same time, Tianyang finally saw the flying sword and Ling Yuhan, who had been waiting for a long time in front of his door. When he saw the two of them, Tianyang smiled and slowed down his footsteps. Master! When Ling Yuhan saw Tianyang arrive, she shouted loudly and immediately pounced over. Ever since they became master and disciple, Tianyang and Ling Yuhan had never been separated for such a long time. Although a month wasn't long, it made Ling Yuhan feel slightly excited. On the other hand, the flying sword was much calmer. He walked up and respectfully said, "Young master." Tianyang caught Ling Yuhan and smiled at the flying sword. "Let's go in and talk. This Void Lightning Hall is really not bad." Hearing this, the two of them nodded. Ling Yuhan also got down from Tianyang and walked into the courtyard. This courtyard had already been set by Tianyang to be open to the three of them. It wasn't that Ling Yuhan and the flying sword were blocked by the array and couldn't enter. In the living room, Tianyang and the two of them sat down in order. After they sat down, Tianyang was the first to speak. He smiled and said, "You all look quite happy. You've gained quite a lot." "Of course." Ling Yuhan laughed slyly. "Although this Void Lightning Hall isn't very compatible with my Ice Emperor Heavenly Sword technique, I've gained quite a lot. In the Void Lightning Hall, I made it to the 21st level of the Lightning Sea and even obtained an Earth rank low-grade movement technique, Ice Movement Technique. My cultivation also broke through a little and reached the peak of the 3rd level of the Origin Transformation stage." Ling Yuhan was in high spirits. Hearing this, Tianyang also slightly nodded and looked at the flying sword. The flying sword was slightly embarrassed. "My cultivation didn't improve much. I'm only at the 8th level of the Origin Transformation stage now. However, the Lightning Sea also broke through to the 23rd level before stopping. I obtained an Earth rank low-grade Thunder Attribute Saber Technique, Thunder Heavenly Blade. It's not bad," Flying Sword said awkwardly. Hearing this, Tianyang also smiled. He understood why the Flying Sword was so embarrassed. As someone who was much stronger than Ling Yuhan in terms of cultivation and age, the Flying Sword was actually 2 levels higher than Ling Yuhan. This wasn't a good result. However, only Tianyang knew that not only did Ling Yuhan have the 9-tailed Moonfok bloodline, but she also had the 9-nether saint body. Although she hadn't fully activated it, it was enough to surpass the Flying Sword. Of course, the Flying Sword wasn't bad either. After all, Nangongfeng was only at the 21st level. Speaking of which, Master, young master, what stage are you at? After Ling Yuhan and the Flying Sword finished talking, she asked Tianyang curiously. Hearing this, Tianyang scratched his head. The 64th level of the Lightning Sea. As for the reward, I didn't count the spiritual stones, nor did I look at the martial arts techniques. I'm too lazy to calculate the contribution points. I'm not sure. Ling Yuhan was speechless. The Flying Sword said, F***CK. In the next moment, the Flying Sword, who was experienced in the outer yard, immediately recovered from the shock and hurriedly said, "Young master, are you sure you're at the 64th level?" "Yes. Is there a problem with this number?" Tianyang was puzzled. Hearing this, the Flying Sword's eyes suddenly shot out a ray of light. He was excited like the Godzilla in the anime. Breaking through the Lightning Sea, except for the first 10 levels, every level will be rewarded with 100 contribution points. After the 40th level, every level will be rewarded with 200 contribution points. After the 50th level, every level will be rewarded with 300 contribution points. After the 60th level, every level will be rewarded with 400 contribution points. And the first time you break through the Lightning Sea, the contribution points will be doubled. Then, young master, the contribution points you've accumulated." The flying sword spoke quickly, but Tianyang and Ling Yuhan heard it clearly. Naturally, they knew what the flying sword's next sentence was. In the next moment, Tianyang also took out his student token and looked at the number of contribution points on it. Chapter 305. 25,384. Seeing this number, Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword felt as if they were about to suffocate. 25,000. Even if they disregarded the last 384, that was still 25,000. Even Flying Sword, a senior who had been in the inner yard for many years, only had a few thousand, which was only a fraction of what Tianyang had. Terrifying. Flying Sword only managed to squeeze out 2 words after standing there for a long time. Tianyang, a freshman who had been in the inner yard for less than 5 months, had accumulated contribution points that even seniors like them could not compare to. One had to know that the inner yard missions were the main way to earn contribution points. However, Tianyang had not done a single one. Of course, Tianyang had not been in the inner yard for long, so it was understandable that he had not done any missions. However, 20,000 contribution points was somewhat unbelievable. Even those ranked in the top 10 of the Outer Court Genius ranking might not have such a number. I remember that the current number 1 on the Outer Yard Genius roll, Zhao Shanhe, only had 22,481 contribution points at his peak. Flying Sword trembled as he said, that was because he did a few special missions and purposely did not exchange for anything. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was speechless. Even Zhao Shanhe was no match for Tianyang. In other words, Tianyang had defeated Zhao Shanhe in just 1 month? That seemed to be the case. On the Outer Yard Thunder Sea roll, Tianyang had crushed Zhao Shanhe without any suspense. Then, Yuhan, Flying Sword, what about your contribution points? Tianyang did not really care. After all, these 25,000 contribution points would be spent sooner or later. Tianyang was not a miser. Money was meant to be spent. Tianyang had spent all the gold coins and spirit stones that could be used to look at things without hesitation, let alone these contribution points that were just a string of numbers. Mine is still okay, a little over 3,000, but it's still a long way from 4,000. However, I should be able to gain something from a martial skills pavilion. Ling Yuhan said weakly. She had reached the 21st level, but did not pass it, so she had only obtained 1,000 contribution points from the Void Thunder Hall. Even if she doubled it, it would only be 2,000. Including the contribution points from the freshman trial, she had barely passed 3,000. However, compared to Tianyang's 25,000 contribution points, it was nothing. On the other hand, Dao Feiyang was straightforward. He covered his face and flashed his student token. 5,841. Not bad, but compared to Tianyang, it was still nothing. Not bad, Tianyang praised. The Earth Tier martial skills in the Martial Skills Pavilion only cost a few hundred to borrow. The highest is only 1,000. It's the same in the Artifact Hall. A few thousand of you can increase your combat power greatly, Tianyang said. Hearing this, the corner of Ling Yuhan's mouth twitched. If it weren't for the fact that she was extremely familiar with Tianyang and knew that his words were sincere praise, she would have disregarded their relationship as master and disciple and gone up to beat him up. The corner of Dao Feiyang's mouth twitched, but he didn't say anything. Although he had the heavenly blade constitution and was the descendant of the mysterious Sky Blade Emperor, Dao Quangtian, why did he feel that he was in front of Tianyang? Just like that. Then, let's go to the Martial Skills Pavilion to take a look. Yuhan, your offensive martial skills are lacking. Flying Sword, you have the heavenly blade constitution, so you must be able to comprehend many blade techniques. Don't waste this talent. Tianyang stood up and smiled. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan and Flying Sword also nodded. That was true. Then, the 3 of them left the courtyard and walked towards the Martial Skills Pavilion. Sky Blue College, Martial Skills Pavilion. Almost like the Void Thunder Hall, this place was still crowded with people. Of course, the Martial Skills Pavilion had countless martial skills and occupied a large area. The only crowded place was the entrance. Tianyang and the other 2 did not spend much effort. They just swiped their student tokens and entered the martial skills pavilion. Let's split up and look. When we find it, we don't need to meet up. Just go back and cultivate, Tianyang said. Then, the three of them split up in the huge martial skills pavilion. Ling Yuhan looked for offensive martial skills, Flying Sword looked for blade techniques, and Tianyang went straight for movement techniques. Dragon subduing steps. In the beginning, he cultivated it because his body was too weak. At that time, it was also the highest level of movement technique that Tianyang could cultivate. Although it was not weak, as Tianyang's strength increased, it became weaker and weaker. Although Tianyang had a lot of movement techniques that were stronger than Dragon's subduing steps in his mind, Tianyang did not want to waste his energy to cultivate another one. Not to mention other things, this Dragon's subduing intent could not be wasted. It is said that although this Dragon's subduing steps is only a mid-grade movement technique, there's an advanced version called 9 Heavens Roaming Dragon Steps. 9 Heavens Roaming Dragon Steps is a half-step heaven rank movement technique. Moreover, it can perfectly inherit the cultivation realm of dragon subduing steps. If you find it, you can directly use it to the peak of Sea of Soul realm. As for 9 Heavens Roaming Dragon Steps, it is made up of dragon subduing steps and roaming dragon steps. Both are mid-grade earth rank movement techniques. This martial skills pavilion might have them, Tianyang said in a low voice. In his mind, a half-step heaven rank movement technique was the strongest movement technique. If he could find it, it would be great. Movement technique area. Tianyang slowed down his pace, glanced at the signboard hanging above his head, and walked in. The movement technique area was huge, but there were not many people. After all, it was different from offensive martial skills. Movement techniques could be used for a long time. Under normal circumstances, there was no need to change them frequently. Tianyang did not waste any time. His soul power spread out and quickly scanned the surrounding movement techniques. Wind Step Technique, high-grade profound rank martial skill. Not bad, but unfortunately I don't need it. River Moon Movement Technique, peerless profound rank martial skill. Still not right. Flood Dragon Movement Technique, low-grade earth rank martial skill. Unfortunately, it is still missing a few words. Tianyang scanned quickly while commenting. Although he did not like these movement techniques, there were still some that were not bad. Perhaps they would be suitable for the Flying Sword. Violent Blade Movement Technique, low-grade earth rank martial skill. Is this name really not a cameo from a blade martial skill? Tianyang was speechless, but he did not relax his soul power scanning. If he could find this swimming dragon movement technique, he could combine it with the dragon suppression step to form the dragon movement technique in the 9th heaven. His combat strength would definitely increase greatly. In the firmament territory, Tianyang would face the geniuses there. Most of their movement techniques were of the earth rank. Although most of them were not as good as the dragon suppression step, they would reduce Tianyang's advantage by a lot. Since his attack power, defense power, physical strength, and soul power had already crushed others, then he might as well directly crush them in all aspects. Tianyang walked slowly, sweeping past a few people from time to time. Tianyang did not care. Then, Tianyang's soul power suddenly throbbed. The Sky Drag elixir also fluctuated slightly. Tianyang suddenly stopped and turned his head to look. Swimming Dragon Movement Technique. Tianyang's lips curled up. Sure enough, there was one. Then, Tianyang reached out to grab it. At this time, a slender white hand also reached out to the Swimming Dragon Movement Technique. Chapter 306. Bang! A soft sound rang out. The two of them were stunned for a moment, then immediately retracted their hands and turned to look at each other. Who would have thought that there would be someone interested in the Swimming Dragon Steps? Tianyang muttered in his heart. Then, he looked at the person and was instantly stunned. The person was a young girl. She wore a very ordinary outer court robe of sky blue college, but her cultivation was not low. She was at the 9th level of the origin transformation stage. Above her cultivation was her peerless appearance. It was as if every detail of her facial features had been painstakingly carved by the heavens. They were all so exquisite. With so many exquisiteness mixed together, it was exceptionally perfect. The lines of her face were very gentle, and her hair was very long. Her fine black hair fell to her waist, accentuating her extraordinary temperament. The only flaw was that her breasts were a little small. After being stunned for a moment, Tianyong quickly recovered and asked, "You are?" Although the young girl in front of him could be said to be peerless, Ling Yuhan was not inferior in any way. Although she did not have a gentle temperament, after awakening the nine-tailed moon fox, her inhuman charm was not to be underestimated. Tianyong had met Ling Yuhan many times, so he was immune to beautiful women. When he saw this person, he was only a little dazed. Hearing this, the young girl was stunned. Then, she looked at Tianyong in surprise. There was actually someone in the outer court who did not know her. However, out of courtesy, the young girl still replied, "Jiang Nanyu." Hearing this, Tianyong's heart trembled slightly. This name was somewhat familiar. Soon, Tianyong recalled. Wasn't this Jiang Nanyu, who was ranked third on the genius ranking of the Outer Yard that Dao Feiyong had mentioned before entering the Void Thunder Hall a month ago? This Jiang Nanyu had another nickname. She was called the Goddess of the Outer Court. Tianyong did not think much of it at that time, but now that he met her, he found out. With Jiang Nanyu's appearance, the title of Goddess of the Outer Court was completely appropriate. "Then you are?" After Jiang Nanyu replied, she asked curiously. There were not many people in the Outer Court who did not know her. Although she didn't really care about her title as the Goddess of the Outer Yard, this title was indeed well known. It was strange that this young man didn't recognize her at all. Tianyong. In the face of Jiang Nanyu's question, Tianyong answered straightforwardly. Hearing this, Jiang Nanyu was startled, then said in surprise, "You're the Outer Yard's #1 freshman who defeated Zhao Shanhe." Tianyong. Jiang Nanyu was shocked. When she first received the news, she was also very shocked. She was still guessing who the Tianyong was. In the end, now that she had met him, it was completely different from what she had imagined. As far as she was concerned, even if Tianyong wasn't some ferocious, burly man, he was definitely not ordinary. After all, to be able to charge into the 64th level of the Void Lightning Hall, with a cultivation at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation stage, his physical strength must be extremely powerful. Generally speaking, people with strong physical strength usually had extremely robust muscles. However, looking at him now, he was simply an ordinary handsome young man. His black hair wasn't long, and his ordinary clothes didn't have any special features. The only special thing about him was the killing sword that faintly emitted a terrifying killing intent behind Tianyong's back. There was also Tianyong's eyes that were as deep as a black hole. It had to be said that Jiang Nanyu's guess was correct. However, although Tianyong's physical strength was terrifying, he didn't cultivate an ordinary body refinement technique. Instead, he cultivated a heaven-tier martial skill, 9 refined dragon body. The 9 refined dragon body was much higher than ordinary body refinement techniques. Therefore, the exaggerated muscles of ordinary body refinement cultivators couldn't be seen on Tianyong's body. That's right. Tianyong nodded slightly, then turned to look at the swimming dragon steps. Senior Jiang is also interested in this swimming dragon steps? Tianyong's tone was calm, and he didn't give Jiang Nanyu a few more glances because of her stunning appearance. This made Jiang Nanyu stunned, and she felt a sense of loss. When ordinary people saw her, they would all be calm with a hint of lust. Even if some people were different, they would still have a burning desire for her appearance. This made her very uncomfortable. After all, her achievements were far more than just her appearance. However, in the outer court of Sky Blue College, the most popular name was still the Goddess of the Outer Court, and not the 3rd place on the Outer Court Genius ranking. However, Tianyong's eyes were always so pure and clear when he looked at her. The only special thing was the depth that was different from ordinary people's. Other than being a little surprised at the beginning, he was incomparably calm for the rest of the time. He was so calm that Jiang Nanyu couldn't help but suspect that her charm had decreased. Now, Tianyong's extremely calm tone was even more special. His eyes were difficult to fake, and his tone was even more difficult. Her soul power wasn't weak, and she would be able to clearly see if there was a trace of suppression in his tone. However, she still couldn't hear anything else from Tianyang's words. It was just a very ordinary question. If it were another man, Tianyang would have used the same tone. Yes. Jiang Nanyu looked at Tianyang again, and then said, "The mystic peerless martial skill that I cultivated previously was no longer enough. So I came to the martial skill pavilion to exchange. Since I want to exchange for the best. So I chose one of the few mid-earth martial skills," Jiang Nanyu said. Then she immediately felt strange. Why did she say so much to this young man whom she had only known for a few minutes? Even if it was the first place on the outer court genius ranking, Zhao Shanhe, she still spoke bluntly. Why did she say so much to Tianyang? Jiang Nanyu's face flushed red, but Tianyang didn't even bother to look at her. His fingers swept through the martial skills one by one, and finally stopped at the swimming dragon steps. He was determined to get this martial skill. "Is this the only choice?" Tianyang asked again. Hearing this, Jiang Nanyu was stunned. She originally wanted to say that she could continue, but when the words came to her mouth, she changed her words. "After looking for a long time, this is the only mid-earth martial skill. If I were to look for other martial skills, it would take a long time. I just happen to need this. Otherwise, I would be at a disadvantage when fighting with other people," Jiang Nanyu said, completely unaware that she had said too much. Tianyang didn't care and withdrew his hand. Looking at the not-so-spacious area, Tianyang said, "This place is not big, and it's not easy to fight." "Really? Jiang Nanyu was stunned. What did he mean? "So 3 moves. 3 moves. If you can block 3 of my moves, the swimming dragon steps will be yours. If you can't, the swimming dragon steps will be mine." Tianyang turned around and faced Jiang Nanyu and said indifferently. He didn't seem to be moved by Jiang Nanyu's appearance. Hearing this, Jiang Nanyu was completely stunned. Chapter 307. 3 moves. If you can block 3 of my moves, the roaming dragon steps will be yours. Jiang Nanyu felt that this might be the most arrogant words she had ever heard since she was born. Who was she? Putting aside the fact that she was ranked 3rd on the Outer Court's Genius ranking, she was also a 9th-level Origin Transformation Stage cultivator. However, Tianyang, who was at the 6th level of the Origin Transformation Stage at most, actually wanted to defeat her in 3 moves. Even Jiang Nanyu, who had good self-restraint, couldn't help but laugh out of anger. However, she secretly doubted in her heart. Was this person blind? A great beauty like her was placed in front of him, yet he was still thinking about the mid-grade Earth rank martial skill. "All right then," Jiang Nanyu said. Looking at Tianyang, the corners of her mouth curled into a smile. 3 moves it is. Although she didn't have the bad habits of the aristocratic family's disciples, she didn't lack the arrogance of a genius. Now that Tianyang was provoking her like this, Jiang Nanyu naturally had to respond. Hearing this, Tianyang lightly smiled and slightly retreated a few steps with Jiang Nanyu to make room for their attacks. First move, Tianyang shouted in a low voice. His Sky Origin True Essence surged, and the Sky Dragon Core also released an endless amount of dragon force. For the 9 heavens roaming dragon steps, he couldn't lose these 3 moves. Of course, Tianyang didn't plan to use his sword. In his opinion, if it was only to defeat and not kill, there was no need to use his sword. Dragon force and true essence fused together, and a terrifying aura exploded from Tianyang's body. Seeing this, Jiang Nanyu's beautiful face revealed a trace of shock. Was this aura really something that a 6th-level Origin Transformation Stage cultivator could possess? Why was it that the Dao Fire Stage cultivator she had seen before were like a drop in the ocean compared to Tianyang? They were incomparably insignificant. Tianyang explosively shouted. True essence condensed at the tip of his finger, and then he pointed out. Boom! The surging true essence even set off an energy storm, and the heaven and earth spirit chi in the entire martial skill pavilion surged. This finger without any martial skill and without any fancy moves blasted towards Jiang Nanyu, just like that. Jiang Nanyu's face greatly changed, and she hurriedly circulated her true essence to block. This finger was actually so terrifying. She was afraid that even if she didn't use her weapon, her strongest attack would still be inferior to his. This young man, so powerful. No wonder he could surpass Zhao Shanhe. Jiang Nanyu's heart trembled slightly. However, his vital essence did not stop circulating. In the next moment, it condensed into an invisible barrier in front of him. Half-step earth tier martial technique, water barrier. Jiang Nanyu shouted, and the water ripple barrier was completed. In the next moment, Tianyang's finger collided with the water ripple barrier. Boom! Shock waves exploded, and energy ripples spread out. Even the extremely sturdy martial skill cabinets in the surroundings were trembling, as if they were shocked by the collision. A few cracks abruptly appeared on the ground beneath their feet. One had to know that the floor of the martial skill pavilion was made from stones that were comparable in strength to low-grade artifacts. This shockwave couldn't even be considered a shockwave. It was just a tiny bit of force, but it was enough to cause the ground, which was comparable to a low-grade treasure, to crack open. The two of them were worthy of being called geniuses. He blocked it. Jiang Nanyu smiled when she saw her water ripple barrier trembling rapidly, but not completely exploding. As expected, the difference in cultivation couldn't be made up so easily. However, this was just a very ordinary finger. She was forced to use a half-step earth tier martial technique to defend herself. If they were to fight, she might have lost long ago. But who asked you to be so arrogant? Jiang Nanyu snorted happily. At this moment, Tianyang looked at the water ripple barrier that had cracks on it and smiled lightly. Looks like I can settle it with one move. Then, Tianyang's finger curled slightly, and the majestic dragon power hidden in that finger completely exploded. Roar! It was as if a true dragon was roaring. In the next moment, the power of this finger increased exponentially. The half-step earth tier martial technique water barrier finally couldn't withstand the pressure and completely exploded. Boom! The water ripple barrier completely exploded, and it was obvious that it had been broken. Under the influence of the aura, Jiang Nanyu's face paled a little, and her face was filled with disbelief. Hadn't this finger been blocked by her? How could it suddenly explode? However, there was no time for Jiang Nanyu to think now. Her true origin circulated rapidly, and countless shields condensed in front of Jiang Nanyu again. However, these shields, when multiplied by 2, were still inferior to the water ripple barrier from before. Facing this finger that could easily destroy the water ripple barrier, how could they block it? The illusory finger destroyed these shields easily. In less than half a breath, this finger arrived in front of Jiang Nanyu. Jiang Nanyu's face turned pale when she saw that the finger didn't dissipate. If this finger landed on her body, wouldn't she be seriously injured? Snap! Tianyang lightly snapped his finger, and this finger that contained a huge amount of energy completely dissipated, turning into the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and completely disappearing. Jiang Nanyu's face was already pale from fright, and her breasts were violently beating, adding a bit of charm. In the next moment, Jiang Nanyu also reacted. Her fair face suddenly flushed red, and she glared at Tianyang. You hid your strength. Hearing this, Tianyang shrugged. It's just a battle technique. Moreover, even if I didn't hide my strength, could you block it? It hasn't even been 10 seconds. Being able to use a half-step earth-rank martial technique is already your limit. Tianyang said indifferently. Hearing this, Jiang Nanyu was speechless. Indeed, Tianyang's words were reasonable. Even if he didn't use this sudden attack, could she really block it? However, when Jiang Nanyu wanted to say something, Tianyang had already taken down the swimming dragon steps and left coolly. A beautiful girl's angry look was cute. What did it have to do with him? If he really wanted to see it, he could go back and tease his little disciple. Don't go, Jiang Nanyu said angrily, but Tianyang didn't even bother to slow down. Soon, he disappeared around the corner. When Jiang Nanyu rushed over, she could no longer see Tianyang's shadow. It was obvious that he had left long ago. Seeing this, Jiang Nanyu was so angry that her teeth itched. She stood on the spot and stomped her feet. How dare you be so violent to me? Tianyang, I'm not done with you. Tianyang couldn't be bothered with the thoughts of this outer court goddess. At this moment, after he found the swimming dragon steps, he didn't stay in the martial skills pavilion anymore. However, when he obtained the swimming dragon steps, there was a small interlude. Borrowing and reading usually didn't require contribution points. However, Tianyang wanted to integrate it into the Nine Heavens swimming dragon steps. Naturally, he couldn't borrow it. Therefore, Tianyang could only spend 12,500 contribution points to buy the swimming dragon steps from the martial skills pavilion. Tianyang's wealth suddenly shrank by half. However, Tianyang didn't care. Contribution points were used to be spent. Moreover, this intermediate earth rank martial technique couldn't be obtained outside, even with tens of millions of low-grade spirit stones. In comparison, Sky Blue College's martial skills pavilion was already very affordable. The dragon subduing steps and the swimming dragon steps are both related to dragons. That's why they can be integrated into the Nine Heavens swimming dragon steps. Tianyang sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. At this moment, Ling Yuhan and the flying sword hadn't returned yet. He just happened to be cultivating. Therefore, using the dragon as a bridge to communicate and integrate. The dragon's subduing steps is mainly about seeking stability and speed. Stability is the key. The essence of the dragon subduing essence that I comprehended lies in this. The swimming dragon steps is about flexibility and speed. When the two are integrated, it is Nine Heavens swimming dragon steps. Tianyang suddenly opened his eyes. A ball of light burst out from his eyes. Chapter 308. After cultivating in Sky Blue College for a few days, Tianyang decided to leave. He could not break through the Void Thunder Hall in a short period of time. Although his Thunder Principal Realm had improved, it was not enough for him to pass through the 64th level of the Thunder Scene naturally. As for his cultivation, it would take time to accumulate. After all, Tian Yuan's true origin was too powerful. Even with a heaven-defying spirit convergence array, like the vast ocean spirit convergence array, Tianyang was only able to consolidate his peak 6th level origin transformation stage cultivation and improve slightly. Yuhan, do you want to go out of the city and have a look? Tianyang smiled. Ling Yuhan nodded. Sure. I'm bored to death with nothing to do in the academy. Then, the two of them left Sky Blue College with their student tokens and entered Night Dome City. Sky Dome Territory, Night Dome City. As one of the few big cities in the Sky Dome Territory, Night Dome City was always bustling. Even though it was still early in the morning and most people had not woken up from their sleep or cultivation, Night Dome City was already very lively. Master, what are we doing in Night Dome City this time? Ling Yuhan asked curiously as she followed behind Tianyang. Tianyang smiled. We're here to challenge the Sword Pagoda. My sword principal cultivation has improved in these few months of cultivation in Sky Blue College. You haven't tested it yet. Since you're free now, let's give it a try. Tianyang smiled. Ling Yuhan nodded. That's true. The last time he challenged the Sword Pagoda was 3 months ago, and it was after that challenge that the name of Sword King Tianji was spread. It resounded throughout the entire Night Dome City. However, because Tianyang's performance was too explosive, the Flying Sword, Tianyang, and even Ling Yuhan forgot that they were going to the Sword Pagoda for an interview. After entering Sky Blue College, a series of events had happened, causing Ling Yuhan to only arrive now. Let's give it a try then. I wonder if I can get onto the Sword Pagoda Steel. Ling Yuhan said with a smile. Tianyang nodded slightly. There was no doubt about Ling Yuhan's talent. Even Tianyang, in his previous life, could not surpass her. He could only surpass her in terms of swordsmanship. However, Ling Yuhan's talent in swordsmanship was equally terrifying. Under the guidance of Tianyang, the Tianji Sword Emperor, it would be a joke if she couldn't ascend the Sword Pagoda Steel. According to Tianyang's estimation, Ling Yuhan should be able to ascend to the 4th level of the Sword Pagoda. If she performed exceptionally well, she might even ascend to the 5th level and enter the top 10 of the Sword Pagoda Steel. Soon, the two of them arrived before the towering Sword Pagoda. Because it was still early, there were still very few people in the Sword Pagoda. Some people were only here to look at the Sword Pagoda Steel, so there was no one challenging the Sword Pagoda steel. When the two of them walked into the Sword Pagoda, they heard a few discussions. This Sword King Tianji is really powerful. It has been 3 months, but Xiao Mingwei and Feng Tianming still haven't defeated him. Even Dugu Wushuang can't do anything about it. The 6th level is equivalent to the Tianji Sword Emperor of the Dao Fire Realm. This Sword King Tianji is only at the 3rd level of the Origin Transformation Realm. Such talent and swordsmanship is really dazzling. However, Xiao Mingyue is also doing well. She has successfully passed the 3rd test of the 5th level. In a few months, she might be able to ascend to the 6th level and threaten Sword King Tianji's position. Forget it. You said that you would give her a few more months. How can Tianji stay where he is in a few months? Even the result of the 6th level was left behind 3 months ago. Who can say for sure how much he will grow in these 3 months? The two of them stood in front of the Sword Pagoda stele and commented. Occasionally, they would mention the other geniuses on the Sword Pagoda stele, but the core of the discussion was still Tianji, who had soared to the 1st place of the Sword Pagoda stele. After all, the result on the 6th level was too dazzling. Even the 4 great clans, or the successors of great forces, Qiu Mingyue and Feng Tianming, had been defeated by him. He had even surpassed the dazzling sword spirit Zhou Tong in the history of Night Dome City. Everyone couldn't help but discuss. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan, who had just come in, smiled. Her eyes narrowed like crescent moons. She was even happier than Tianyang himself. Master, they're talking about you. I heard them. Tianyang nodded. At this moment, a sharp voice suddenly came from the side. What bullshit Sword King Tianji? He is just a trash with a little talent. If it wasn't for the fact that the geniuses of my Nangong family didn't make a move, Tianji wouldn't have been able to stay in the 1st place. That person sneered. Hearing this, the entire Sword Pagoda went silent for a moment. This person actually dared to say such things about Sword King Tianji? It's the biggest playboy of the Nangong family, Nangong Ao. This person is the youngest son of the Nangong family's patriarch. He has always been favored. No wonder he is so arrogant. Someone recognized the identity of a newcomer and said in a low voice. Hearing this, Tianyang raised his eyebrows slightly. This person was actually from the Nangong family? That's right. Other than the Nangong family, who else would slander Sword King Tianji like this? Then, Tianyang glanced at that person from head to toe. He was wearing an extremely luxurious outfit, which was probably close to the power of a mid-grade precious artifact. His black hair hung down to his shoulders, and his face was somewhat handsome. However, there was a strange evilness to it. Between his brows, there was an arrogant attitude that looked down on everything. Even Tianyang, who had better self-restraint, couldn't help but frown. Hey, what are you talking about? At this moment, Ling Yuhan was the first to lose it. Who was Sword King Tianji? It was her master, Tianyang. How could she tolerate someone slandering her master? Sword King Tianji is someone who can be slandered and mocked by someone like you? Ling Yuhan said angrily. Hearing this, Nangong Ao was slightly taken aback. He looked at Ling Yuhan with a trace of greed on his face. He didn't expect to meet such a beauty in the Sword Pagoda so early. However, when he thought of how his cousin, Nangong Yun, had suffered at the hands of Sword King Tianji, Nangong Ao sneered. You make it sound so nice. Why didn't Tianji come out? Rumor has it that he is from Sky Blue College. However, Sky Blue College doesn't have a rule that prevents students from going out. He hasn't come for 3 months. He probably used some unspeakable sorcery last time to achieve such results. Nangong Ao mocked. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. It was possible that Sword King Tianji hadn't come for 3 months. If he had used some sorcery before entering the Sword Pagoda, he wouldn't have disappeared even if he entered the Sword Pagoda. Hearing this, Ling Yuhan was infuriated. Just as she was about to say something, Nangong Ao chuckled and walked towards Ling Yuhan. Hey, beauty, don't speak up for that trash. Why don't you follow me, Nangong Ao? I guarantee that you'll enjoy endless glory, splendor, and wealth in your next life. Nangong Ao chuckled as his body got closer and closer to Ling Yuhan. He slowly released the aura of a peak 7th level origin transformation stage martial artist. At this moment, a hand suddenly blocked his path. Subsequently, a faint voice sounded. Chapter 309. Scram. Tianyang stared coldly at Nangong Ao. His right hand was like a knife as it emitted a fierce aura. He had long been annoyed by this fellow. It was already disgusting for him to shoot his mouth off. Now, he even scolded him. After scolding him, he even wanted to touch his disciple. This was intolerable. If Tianyang continued to tolerate this, he would become a saint. Nangong Ao's face turned cold as Tianyang's arm blocked his path. He glanced at Tianyang and sneered. Kid, do you know who you're talking to? If you know what's good for you, raise your hand and chop it off. Nangong Ao sneered. An arrogant aura was emitted from his body, and a violent aura erupted from his body. Nangong Ao's cultivation was at the 7th level of the origin transformation stage. He was definitely a genius at the age of 19. Just like that. As the youngest son of the Nangong family's patriarch, and with such a powerful talent, Nangong Ao was naturally arrogant. Chop it off. Tianyang laughed when he heard this. He looked at Nangong Ao with a mocking expression. I'd like to see how you're going to chop off my hand. In the next moment, Tianyang made his move. Circulating his true origin, Tianyang's hand immediately exploded with a terrifying speed and grabbed Nangong Ao's arm. Nangong Ao's face changed when he saw this. His arm was actually grabbed just like that. As a cultivator at the 7th level of the origin transformation stage, his soul perception was not weak at all. However, Tianyang was still able to grab his arm without him noticing. Either Tianyang's soul strength was extremely terrifying and completely overpowered him, or Tianyang's speed was extremely terrifying. In fact, Tianyang was both. So what if he grabbed my arm? I'm a 7th level origin transformation stage cultivator. This little bastard is at most a 4th or 5th level origin transformation stage cultivator. Nangong Ao's face was filled with arrogance. Even though his arm was restrained, he still sneered. Little bastard, is that all you've got? In the next moment, Nangong Ao's arm shook. He wanted to counter Tianyang and throw Tianyang out. In the end, when the true essence landed on Tianyang's body, it was like a clay ox entering the sea, instantly disappearing into nothingness. Pure physical strength was unable to shake the heavenly sun in the slightest. It was as if the one grabbing Nangong Ao was not a 15 or 16-year-old youth, but a towering mountain. That's all you got. Tianyang smiled. Looks like you're just SOSO. Hearing this, Nangong Ao's face turned green with anger. He had said those words, but they couldn't shake Tianyang at all. This was already extremely humiliating. In the end, Tianyang still used the same words to refute him. This was simply a ruthless slap on his face. Little bastard, you're courting death. Nangong Ao furiously roared. His 7th level origin transformation stage, Zhen Yuan, crazily circulated, die. Earth low-class martial skill, crushing fist. In the next moment, a strange wave emitted from Nangong Ao's fist. Seeing this, the surrounding crowd was shocked. It's actually the crushing fist. It's one of the strongest martial skills of the Nangong family. Although this martial skill is only an Earth low-class martial skill, its actual power isn't any weaker than an Earth middle-class martial skill. Once the crushing fist touches the body, even if it's just a strand of hair, it will shatter the entire body of the person who is hit. The crowd was shocked. Hearing this, Tianyang's expression changed slightly. There was such a martial skill. It was somewhat rare. But unfortunately, in the face of absolute strength, any Earth-rank low-grade martial skill or shattering fist was nothing. Boom! A loud sound was heard, and a cloud of smoke spread out. The crowd thought that the crushing fist had hit Tianyang. They all sighed and closed their eyes, unable to bear to look at it. Those who were hit by the crushing fist died extremely miserably. Their flesh and blood were shattered, and only their heads were preserved. In addition to the blood on the ground, it was extremely bloody and hideous. Moreover, these people were also observing a moment of silence for Tianyang. The person who could temporarily suppress Nangong Ao was definitely not a weak genius. However, this genius was going to fall in the hands of Nangong Ao. Boom, 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 boom. Another 3 loud sounds were heard. Seeing this, the crowd felt a little strange. Did the crushing fist have the ability to explode continuously? Some people couldn't help but open their eyes. In the end, once they opened their eyes, they couldn't move their eyes away. They saw that after using the crushing fist, Nangong Ao, who thought that victory was in his grasp, didn't have the ability to attack his opponent at all. Instead, he was lifted up by a huge force and was crazily smashed onto the ground. Tianyang grabbed Nangong Ao's arm with one hand, and his other hand was fiddling with the space bag that he took from Nangong Ao's waist. He looked extremely satisfied. However, Nangong Ao, who was caught, looked extremely ugly. A terrifying force that he couldn't resist instantly took away all control of his body. Following this, Nangong Ao felt his body leaving the ground. Just when he thought that Tianyang was going to throw him away, he suddenly felt that he was falling rapidly. Following this, Mother Earth and Nangong Ao came into close contact. Boom, 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 boom. Tianyang kept smashing Nangong Ao's body left and right. He smashed Nangong Ao's body to the ground until Nangong Ao's breath was weak, his head was swollen, and his head was bleeding. In the end, Tianyang, the culprit, acted as if nothing had happened. He was calmly looking at the scenery around him. This extremely strange phenomenon naturally attracted the attention of the crowd. However, even if they noticed it, they couldn't do anything about it. This was because Nangong Ao's head was already bleeding after being smashed by Tianyang. He no longer had the ability to fight. It was hard to guarantee that his brain wasn't damaged. Bastard, Nangong Ao took the opportunity to raise his head and roared crazily. How dare you treat me like this? The Nangong nobles will definitely tear you into pieces. Hearing this, Tianyang narrowed his eyes and chuckled. Not bad. You've given me another reason to smash you. In the next moment, Tianyang unleashed the terrifying power of the heavenly dragon body and smashed down with all his might. Boom! A deafening explosion sounded from the ground. The faces of the people who saw this scene all turned deathly pale. They looked at Nangong Ao, who did not even have many teeth remaining and had completely fainted. Nangong Ao was the youngest son of the Nangong nobles and also the most favored son. Who the hell was this guy? He didn't have any scruples and directly smashed Nangong Ao's arm onto the ground. If it was a normal fight, the crowd wouldn't be so shocked if Nangong Ao was beaten up like this. However, how is this a normal fight by Tianyang? He blasted Nangong Ao away and then grabbed Nangong Ao's arm. After that, he smashed Nangong Ao like a madman. This was simply a madman. Trash. How dare you be so arrogant in front of me and scold me? Tianyang curled his lips and casually threw Nangong Ao out. Bang! The sound of his energy center exploding was suddenly heard. Nangong Ao's lifetime of cultivation was crippled. Then Tianyang turned his head. The idiot is finished. You can go in now. Ling Yuhan, who was dumbfounded the entire time.